I sat in the courtroom, my heart pounding like thunder, watching my 18-year-old son walk to the witness stand. He was about to testify against me, his own father, in my divorce from my second wife. But the most horrifying part wasn't my son's betrayal. It was the truth behind it. My wife had turned my own child into a weapon to destroy me, and I only discovered this conspiracy the night before the trial. Before we begin, let me know where you're tuning in from down in the comments. And if you enjoy this story, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our next tale. Chapter 1. The autumn sunlight cut through the high windows of the New York family courtroom like a blade through my chest. I sat there, my hands gripping the edge of the defendant's table, watching my 18-year-old son Legolas walk to the witness stand. Every step he took felt like another nail in my coffin. My name is Aragorn Miller, and at 45 years old, I'd built an empire in finance, survived market crashes, and negotiated deals worth hundreds of millions. But nothing, absolutely nothing, had prepared me for this moment. Watching my own son prepare to testify against me in my divorce proceedings felt like drowning in broad daylight. The courtroom was packed. Manhattan's elite loved a good scandal, and mine had all the ingredients: money, betrayal, and a second wife half my age. I could feel their eyes on me, hungry for drama. The court reporter sat with her fingers poised over her machine, ready to capture every devastating word. Even she seemed to lean forward with anticipation. Judge Galadriel Lopez presided from her bench like a queen surveying her kingdom. She was in her 60s, with steel-gray hair pulled back in a severe bun and eyes that could cut glass. She'd seen it all in family court, the lies, the tears, the desperate grabs for money and custody. But even she seemed particularly interested in today's proceedings. "Please state your name for the record," the court clerk said. "Legolas Miller," my son replied, his voice steady but distant. He wore the Navy suit I'd bought him for his high school graduation 6 months ago. The irony wasn't lost on me. The gift I'd given to celebrate his achievements was now his armor against me. I caught movement in my peripheral vision. Arwen, my soon-to-be ex-wife, sat at the plaintiff's table looking like butter wouldn't melt in her mouth. At 32, she still had that polished beauty that had first caught my eye when she was my assistant 5 years ago. Today she wore a conservative black dress that made her look vulnerable and wronged, carefully calculated, no doubt. Her attorney, Éowyn Taylor, sat beside her in a sharp gray suit, radiating the confidence of someone who thought they'd already won. Arwen turned slightly and caught Legolas's eye. The smile she gave him was small, serene, almost motherly, but I knew better. That smile was a reminder, a silent command. Remember what we practiced. Remember the script. My stomach twisted into knots. My lawyer, Boromir Wilson, had warned me about this. "Aragorn," he'd said just yesterday, his usually confident voice tinged with concern. "I'm hearing rumors that your son plans to testify about some promise that you told him you'd leave everything to him. All of it." "That's insane," I'd replied. "I never said anything like that." But Boromir's expression had remained grim. "It doesn't matter what you actually said. It matters what he says you said, and if he testifies to it under oath." The weight of those words pressed down on me now as I watched my son raise his right hand. "Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?" the clerk asked. "I do," Legolas said. "I do." The same words I'd said twice at the altar, once to his mother Rosie, once to Arwen. Both times I'd meant them. Both times I'd failed to keep the promises that came with them. The air in the courtroom felt thick, oppressive. October in New York could be beautiful, but inside this wood-paneled room with its fluorescent lights and recycled air, seasons didn't exist. Only verdicts and consequences. Éowyn Taylor stood, smoothing her skirt with practiced ease. She was in her 40s, with the kind of sharp features that suggested she ate opposing counsel for breakfast. She'd been Arwen's weapon of choice in this war, and she was very good at her job. "Good morning, Legolas," she said warmly, as if they were old friends. "I know this must be difficult for you." Legolas nodded but said nothing. His eyes, the same green as his mother's, remained fixed on some point above my head. He wouldn't look at me. Hadn't really looked at me in months. "Let's start with something simple," Éowyn continued. How would you describe your relationship with your father? I held my breath. This was it, the opening salvo in what would either be my destruction or my salvation. Legolas shifted in his seat. For a moment, just a moment, his eyes flickered toward me. I tried to communicate everything in that split second. Please, son, I know I've hurt you. I know I've failed you. But don't do this. Don't let her use you like this. But then his gaze moved to Arwen, who sat with her hands folded in her lap, the picture of composure. She gave him the tiniest nod of encouragement. It's complicated, Legolas finally said. Eowyn nodded sympathetically. Of course, these things always are. Can you elaborate? My father and I used to be close, Legolas said, his voice gaining strength. When I was younger, we did everything together. Baseball games, fishing trips upstate. He taught me to ride a bike in Central Park. The memories hit me like physical blows. I remembered those days with painful clarity. The weight of him on my shoulders at Yankee Stadium, both of us cheering ourselves hoarse. The pride in his eyes the first time he caught a trout. The way he'd thrown his arms around me when he finally rode that bike without training wheels, shouting, "I did it, Dad. Did you see? Did you see?" But things changed, Eowyn prompted. Yes, Legolas said simply. Things changed when he cheated on my mom. The words hung in the air like a confession at church. Several people in the gallery shifted uncomfortably. Even Judge Lopez's expression softened slightly. That must have been very painful for you, Eowyn said. It destroyed our family, Legolas replied, and now there was real emotion in his voice. Not the rehearsed kind, the raw, honest kind that made my chest ache. My mom found out about his affair with her. He nodded toward Arwen. With his assistant. I wanted to stand up, to explain, to defend myself, but Boromir's hand on my arm kept me seated. Don't react, he'd coached me. No matter what they say, don't react. The judge is watching everything. So I sat there, feeling like my skin was being slowly peeled away as my son continued. Mom cried for weeks, Legolas said. I was 13. I didn't understand why Dad would do that to us. We were happy. We were a family. The past tense hurt more than any accusation could have. We were a family. Were. And your father married Arwen shortly after the divorce? Eowyn asked. 6 months later, Legolas confirmed. He moved her into our house, into Mom's house. That wasn't entirely accurate. I'd bought a new penthouse after the divorce, specifically to avoid that kind of painful overlap. But I didn't blame Legolas for remembering it differently. Pain has a way of rewriting history. How did you feel about Arwen becoming your stepmother? Legolas was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was carefully neutral. I tried to give her a chance, for Dad's sake. Arwen's expression remained serene, but I saw her fingers tighten slightly on her purse. This wasn't part of the script. Legolas was supposed to say something positive about her, to establish her as the wronged party who'd tried to build a relationship with her stepson. But it was difficult, Eowyn asked, trying to steer things back on track. She was. Different from Mom, Legolas said diplomatically. Mom's a social worker. She helps kids in the foster system. Arwen was more interested in other things. What kind of things? Shopping, parties, being seen at the right restaurants. I watched Arwen's jaw tighten almost imperceptibly. This definitely wasn't going according to plan. Eowyn cleared her throat. Let's move forward a bit. In recent months, as your parents' marriage deteriorated, did your father ever discuss his financial situation with you? Here it comes, I thought. The hammer blow. The lie that would paint me as a manipulator trying to hide assets through my son. Legolas glanced at Arwen again. She leaned forward slightly, her eyes intense. He mentioned things, Legolas said slowly. What kind of things? Eowyn pressed. The courtroom was so quiet I could hear my own heartbeat. It seemed to echo off the walls. Guilty, guilty, guilty. But guilty of what? Of being a bad husband? Yes. Of betraying my first wife? Absolutely. Of promising my son something I never promised? No. He talked about the future, Legolas said, about what would happen to his money. And did he make any specific promises to you about that money? This was it. This was the moment that would determine everything. If Legola said yes, if he claimed I'd promised him everything, it would look like I was trying to shield my assets from the divorce settlement. The judge would see me as not just an adulterer, but a schemer, a liar, someone willing to use his own child for financial gain. My hands were sweating. I wiped them on my pants, trying to look calm. Across from me, Arwen sat forward, her lips slightly parted in anticipation. Legolas opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. "My father," he began, then stopped. Judge Lopez leaned forward. "Take your time, young man." But time was the enemy. Every second that passed felt like an hour. The sunlight had shifted, no longer cutting through the windows but pooling on the floor like spilled gold. Dust motes danced in the air, oblivious to the drama unfolding below them. I looked at my son, really looked at him. When had he gotten so tall? When had his face lost the last of its baby fat? He was a man now, technically an adult, but I could still see the boy who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms, who insisted on wearing his Superman cape to grocery stores, who once told me I was his hero. I wasn't anybody's hero now. Legolas's eyes met mine across the courtroom. For a moment, we just stared at each other, father and son, the betrayer and the betrayed. I tried to pour everything I felt into that look, my regret, my love, my desperate hope that somewhere inside the angry young man was still the boy who loved me. "My father told me," Legolas said, his voice barely above a whisper. Arwen leaned forward even more, her knuckles white as she gripped her purse. "He told me that family was more important than money." That wasn't what he was supposed to say. I could see it in Eowyn's surprised expression, in the way Arwen's mouth opened slightly in shock. "But did he make any specific promises about his estate?" Eowyn pressed, trying to get back on script. "Did he say he would leave everything to you?" The question hung in the air like smoke from a fired gun. Everyone waited. Legolas looked at Arwen. She stared back at him, her eyes blazing with an intensity that could have melted steel. The message was clear. Say it. Say what we practiced. Don't you dare back out now. Then he looked at me. I didn't try to communicate anything this time. I just let him see me tired, flawed, human, his father. The silence stretched on. Someone in the gallery coughed. A phone buzzed and was quickly silenced. Outside, I could hear the faint sound of sirens, New York's constant symphony. Finally, Legolas took a deep breath. "My father," he began again. And that's when everything started to unravel. But I didn't know that yet. In that moment, suspended between his words and what would come next, I only knew fear. Fear of losing my son. Fear of losing everything. Fear that I'd finally pushed away the one person who mattered most. The court reporter's fingers hovered over her keys. Judge Lopez waited with the patience of someone who'd seen every kind of family drama play out in her courtroom. Eowyn stood frozen, like an actor who'd forgotten her lines. Arwen looked like she might spontaneously combust. And me? I sat there, drowning in that sunlit courtroom, waiting for my son to either save me or deliver the final blow. "What will you choose, Legolas?" I thought desperately. "Your anger or the truth? Her lies or our bond?" Time slowed to a crawl. I heard everything: the rustle of papers, the hum of the air conditioning, the rapid beating of my own traitorous heart. My throat was dry as sand. My hands trembled slightly, and I pressed them flat against the table to still them. This was it. Everything I'd built, everything I'd destroyed, everything I hoped to salvage it all came down to what my son would say next. The words he would speak would either damn me or redeem me. And the worst part? Either way, I'd earned whatever came next. Every choice I'd made, every betrayal I'd committed, every moment I'd put my own desires above my family's needs had led to this moment. I was at the mercy of the son I'd failed, in a courtroom full of strangers, with my future hanging in the balance. Legolas cleared his throat. "My father made me a promise," he said. My heart stopped. This was it. The end. He promised. Legolas continued, and I could see Arwen's triumphant smile beginning to form. But then the courtroom door burst open, and everything changed. Chapter 2. But let me back up. To understand how I ended up in that courtroom, waiting for my son to potentially destroy me, you need to know how I destroyed everything first. It started 5 years ago, God, was it really only 5 years? It feels like a lifetime, like I was a completely different person, then successful, confident, happily married. Or so I thought. Rosie and I had been married for 15 years. We'd met in college, both of us young and stupid and convinced we could conquer the world together. She was studying social work. I was in business school. She wanted to save kids. I wanted to make millions. Somehow, despite our different dreams, we made it work. We had Legolas 2 years after we got married. I still remember the day he was born, the terror and joy all mixed together as I held this tiny, perfect person who was somehow mine. Rosie had looked at me with tears in her eyes and said, "We made him, Aragorn. We made this beautiful boy." And he was beautiful. Is beautiful. Even now. Even after everything. For 13 years, we were the family you see in Christmas card photos. The three of us in matching sweaters, Rosie's idea, smiling in front of a fireplace. My Manhattan penthouse had a gorgeous one. Legolas in his Little League uniform with Rosie and me on either side, proud parents of a kid who could actually hit the ball. Summer vacations in the Hamptons, winter breaks in Aspen. We had it all. But somewhere along the way, I started to believe I deserved more. It's such a cliché, isn't it? The successful businessman, the younger assistant. You've heard this story 1,000 times, but when you're living it, it doesn't feel like a cliché. It feels like fate. Arwen had started working for me 3 years before everything imploded. She was 24, fresh out of Wharton with an MBA and ambition that could light up Times Square. She was brilliant, I told myself. That's why I hired her. Her insights on the Morrison merger had saved us millions. Her projections for the Asian markets were eerily accurate. She had a gift. She also had legs that went on for miles and a smile that made you forget your own name. I fought it at first. I really did. I loved Rosie. I loved our life. I loved being the kind of man who came home to his family every night, who coached his son's basketball team on weekends, who still brought his wife flowers every Friday just because. But Arwen was always there, staying late to finish presentations, bringing me coffee exactly how I liked it without being asked, laughing at my terrible jokes in board meetings. And slowly, insidiously, she became more than just my assistant. The first time we kissed was after the Hartley acquisition. We'd worked 72 hours straight to close the deal, running on coffee and adrenaline. When the signatures finally came through, when we'd won, she'd thrown her arms around me in celebration. I should have stepped back, should have laughed it off, should have done anything except what I did, which was pull her closer and kiss her like I was drowning and she was air. "We can't," I'd said when we finally broke apart. "I know," she'd replied. We lasted exactly 3 days before it happened again. The affair went on for 6 months before Rosie found out. 6 months of lies, of working late, of business trips that weren't entirely business. 6 months of becoming someone I didn't recognize, a cheater, a liar, a man who could look his wife in the eye at breakfast and pretend everything was fine. The day Rosie found out still haunts me. It was a Tuesday. Funny how the worst days of your life are never dramatic Mondays or fateful Fridays. They're boring Tuesdays when you're not expecting the world to end. I'd told Rosie I had a client dinner. Instead, I took Arwen to a restaurant in Tribeca, far from our usual neighborhood. We were careless, drunk on wine and each other, holding hands across the table like teenagers. What I didn't know was that Rosie's book club had canceled, and her friend Miranda had suggested trying that new place in Tribeca she'd heard about. I still remember the moment I saw her. Arwen was telling a story about her college roommate, gesturing animatedly with her free hand, while the other remained entwined with mine. I was laughing, leaning forward, completely absorbed. Then I felt it, that prickle on the back of your neck when someone's watching you. I turned, and there she was. Rosie, standing 10 feet away in the green dress I'd bought her for her birthday, her face a masterpiece of shock and devastation. Our eyes met. Time stopped. The restaurant noise faded to nothing. "Rosie," I said, though it came out as barely a whisper. She didn't say anything. She just stood there looking at me like she'd never seen me before, like I was a stranger wearing her husband's face. Then she turned and walked out. I threw money on the table and ran after her, leaving Arwen calling my name behind me. But Rosie was already in a cab, already gone. When I got home, the house was quiet. Too quiet. I found her in our bedroom, packing a suitcase with mechanical precision. "Rosie, please, let me explain." She laughed, but it was the kind of laugh that had no humor in it. "Explain? What's to explain, Aragorn? You're fucking your assistant. It's not exactly complicated." The crude words sounded wrong coming from her. Rosie never swore. She was the one who instituted the swear jar when Legolas was little, who said sugar instead of shit and fudge instead of fuck. "It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think." She turned to face me, and I saw that she'd been crying. Her mascara had run, leaving dark tracks down her cheeks. "How long?" "Rosie, how long?" "6 months, I admitted. She nodded like she'd expected that answer. 6 months. For 6 months, you've been lying to me, lying to our son, lying to everyone. I never meant for it to happen." "Oh, well then, you never meant for it. That makes it all better." The sarcasm was a knife between my ribs. "Tell me, when you were never meaning for it to happen, were you thinking about us at all? About Legolas?" "I think about Legolas every day. But not enough to keep your dick in your pants." I flinched. This angry, crude version of Rosie was terrifying because I'd created her. I'd taken my gentle, loving wife and turned her into this. That's when I noticed Legolas standing in the hallway. I don't know how long he'd been there, how much he'd heard. He was 13, all gangly limbs and acne, wearing his Knicks jersey and looking at me like I'd just killed someone in front of him. "Legolas," I started, moving toward him. He stepped back. That single step backward broke something in me. "Is it true?" he asked, his voice cracking the way it did now that puberty was wreaking havoc on him. "You cheated on Mom?" I wanted to lie. God, I wanted to lie. To protect him, to preserve his image of me, to keep being his hero for just a little longer. But Rosie spoke first. "Yes, sweetheart, it's true." Legolas looked between us, his eyes filling with tears he was too proud to let fall. Then he turned and ran to his room, slamming the door so hard the family photos on the hallway wall shook. One of them fell. It was from last Christmas, the three of us in those ridiculous matching sweaters, smiling like we had all the time in the world. The glass shattered when it hit the floor. Rosie went back to packing. "I'm taking Legolas to my mother's. We'll be back tomorrow afternoon. I want you gone by then." "Rosie, please, we can work through this. Couples therapy, whatever you want." She whirled on me, and for a moment I thought she might hit me. Part of me wished she would. Physical pain would have been easier than the look in her eyes. "Couples therapy? Are you serious? You've been fucking her for 6 months, Aragorn. 6 months of looking me in the eye and lying. 6 months of coming home to me with her perfume on your clothes. 6 months of making me feel crazy for suspecting something was wrong." She was right. Every word was true. I had no defense. "And the worst part?" she continued, her voice breaking. "The worst part is that I blamed myself. When you started pulling away, when you stopped touching me, when you were always too tired or too busy, I thought it was me. I thought I'd gotten boring. I actually went to Victoria's Secret last week, Aragorn. Bought lingerie to try to win back my own husband. Do you have any idea how pathetic that makes me feel?" "You're not pathetic. You're perfect. I'm the one who stop. Just stop." She zipped up her suitcase with finality. "My lawyer will be in touch. Rosie, her name is Arwen, right? Your assistant?" She laughed that horrible, laughless laugh again. "Of course it is. The princess from Lord of the Rings. How perfectly precious." She moved toward the door, then stopped. "You know what the really sick part is? I saw it. I saw the way she looked at you, the way you smiled when she called. And I told myself I was being paranoid, that you were a good man, that you would never do that to us." She looked at me one last time. I was wrong about everything except the paranoid part. Then she was gone, and I was alone in our bedroom, my bedroom now surrounded by the debris of my marriage. The divorce was swift and brutal. Rosie got primary custody of Legolas, the house in Westchester, and a settlement that made my lawyer wince. I got alternating weekends and the guilt that clung to me like a second skin. But here's the thing about guilt. It fades. especially when you have someone telling you it's not your fault, that you deserve to be happy, that love isn't something you can control. That someone was Arwen. I married her 6 months after the divorce was finalized. Looking back, I can see how insane that was. But at the time, it felt like the only thing that made sense. I'd already paid such a high price for our relationship, my marriage, my son's respect, half my assets. If I didn't marry her, what had it all been for? The wedding was small, just a few friends and business associates at the Rainbow Room. Arwen looked stunning in a designer dress that cost more than most people's cars. She cried when she said her vows, promised to love me forever, to be the partner I deserved. Legolas didn't come. I'd invited him, practically begged him, but he'd refused. "She's not my family," he'd said flatly when I'd asked him to be my best man. "She's just the woman who destroyed my family." So my business partner stood beside me instead, and I pretended the empty space where my son should have been didn't feel like a wound. The early days with Arwen were a blur of expensive dinners, charity galas, and the kind of sex that makes you forget your own name. She redecorated the penthouse, turning it from a bachelor pad into something out of Architectural Digest. She charmed my business associates, remembered their wives' names and their kids' colleges. She was everything a successful man's wife should be. But she wasn't Rosie. I know how that sounds. Poor me, trading in my family for a younger model and then missing what I'd thrown away. But it was more complicated than that. Rosie had been my partner. She'd challenged me, called me out when I was being an ass, reminded me that there was more to life than money and deals. She'd made me laugh with her terrible puns, made me think with her insights about human nature gleaned from her work with foster kids. Arwen was different. She agreed with everything I said, laughed at all my jokes even when they weren't funny, never challenged or questioned. At first, I thought it was refreshing. No arguments, no conflicts, just smooth sailing. But smooth sailing gets boring. And that's when I started to notice things, like how she went through my phone when she thought I was sleeping, how she knew exactly how much money I had in every account, how she'd accidentally let slip to Legolas about expensive gifts I'd bought her, knowing it would drive another wedge between us. "Why would you tell him about the necklace?" I'd asked after a particularly disastrous weekend visit where Legolas had barely spoken to me. "I thought he'd be happy for you," she'd said innocently, "that you'd found someone who makes you happy." But her eyes had glittered with something else. Satisfaction, maybe, or calculation. The real problem started about a year into the marriage. The honeymoon phase wore off, and suddenly Arwen wasn't content with just being Mrs. Miller. She wanted to be involved in the business, wanted her name on accounts, wanted power of attorney just in case something happens to you. "I'm 38, I'd laughed. "Nothing's going to happen to me." "You never know," she'd said, and something in her tone made me uneasy. That's when I started pulling back. Not consciously at first, but little things. Working later to avoid coming home. Taking business trips alone instead of bringing her along. And, God help me, noticing other women again. I know how it sounds. The serial cheater, unable to keep it in his pants. But it wasn't like that. Not exactly. I was lonely. How's that for irony? I'd destroyed my family for this woman, and I was lonelier with her than I'd ever been alone. She was there physically, but emotionally, spiritually. We were strangers sharing expensive sheets. The woman from the London office was named Claire. Nothing happened. Not really. Just drinks after a late meeting, conversation that went deeper than anything Arwen and I had talked about in months. Claire was going through a divorce too, knew what it was like to wake up and not recognize your life. We kissed in the elevator. Once. And I immediately knew I couldn't do it again. Not because I was suddenly faithful, but because I recognized the pattern. I was about to blow up another relationship because I was too much of a coward to face what was really wrong. But Arwen found out anyway. She'd had someone following me, a private investigator she'd hired just to be safe. She confronted me with photos of Claire and me at the bar, our heads bent close together, clearly intimate even without touching. The fight was volcanic. "You bastard!" She threw a crystal vase at the wall, missing my head by inches. It exploded against the wall in a shower of glass and water and roses I'd brought home that very day. "You cheating, lying bastard. Nothing happened. Don't lie to me." Don't you dare lie to me! She was screaming, her face red, all composure gone. I gave up everything for you! What exactly did you give up, Arwen? The question came out harsher than I intended. Your studio apartment in Queens? Your entry-level job? What great sacrifice did you make? She slapped me, hard. My cheek stung and my ear rang. I gave up my dignity, she hissed. Do you know what people call me? Your midlife crisis, your trophy wife, the homewrecker. I endure all of that for you, and this is how you repay me. One kiss. It was one kiss, and I stopped it. Just like it was just 6 months with me while you were married to Rosie. That shut me up, she was right. I was doing it again, the same pattern, the same excuses. I want a divorce, she said. Arwen. And I want everything, the penthouse, the accounts, all of it. That's ridiculous. We have a prenup. She smiled then, cold and calculating. We'll see about that. That's when I heard footsteps on the stairs. Legolas was there for his weekend visit. He'd heard everything. He stood at the top of the stairs looking down at us with an expression I'll never forget. Not anger, not sadness, but something worse. Vindication. Like he'd been waiting for this, expecting it, and I'd finally proven him right about what kind of man I was. Like father, like son of a bitch, he said quietly, then turned and went back to his room. Arwen laughed, high and slightly hysterical. Even your son knows what you are. She moved out that night, into a hotel suite that I later learned cost $2,000 a night. On my credit card, of course. That was 3 months ago. 3 months of lawyers and mediations and settlement negotiations. 3 months of Arwen systematically trying to destroy me, not just financially but emotionally. And the worst part? She'd found the perfect weapon. Legolas. I don't know exactly when she started working on him. Maybe during those last weeks when she was still living in the penthouse, or maybe after she moved out. But somehow she'd done the impossible. She'd turned my son into her ally. The boy who'd refused to come to our wedding, who'd barely spoken to her for 2 years, was suddenly spending time with her. Coffee dates, shopping trips, long conversations about God knows what. What's going on with you and Arwen? I'd asked during one of his visits. We're friends, he'd said simply. Friends? You hate her. I hated what she represented, he corrected. But it wasn't really her fault, was it? You're the one who cheated. You're the one who made the choices. He was right, of course. But something about the way he said it, like he was reciting lines, made me uneasy. What do you talk about? Stuff. What kind of stuff? Just stuff, Dad. God, why are you so paranoid? But I had reason to be paranoid. Because a week later, Boromir told me about the rumor that Legolas was going to testify that I'd promised him everything. That's impossible, I'd said. I never. Doesn't matter, Boromir interrupted. If he says it under oath, it becomes evidence. The judge will think you're trying to hide assets through your son. It'll look like fraud. But why would he lie? Boromir had given me a look that said I was being naive. Why do you think? Arwen. It all came back to Arwen. And now here we were, in this courtroom, waiting for my son to either tell the truth or help his stepmother destroy me. The door that had burst open was just a late arrival, some lawyer fumbling with his briefcase. Judge Lopez frowned at the interruption. Continue, Mr. Miller, she said to Legolas. My son looked at me again, really looked at me, and for a moment I saw past the anger and hurt to the boy underneath. The boy who still wanted to believe his father was a good man, even after all evidence to the contrary. My father made me a promise, he said again, and Arwen leaned forward eagerly. He promised that he would always love me, no matter what. The courtroom was silent. And did he promise you anything else? Yewin prompted, trying to salvage this. Anything about money or inheritance? Legolas was quiet for a long moment. Then, I need to tell the truth. Arwen's face went white. The truth is always best, Judge Lopez said gently. Legolas took a deep breath. My stepmother asked me to lie. The explosion was immediate. Arwen shot to her feet. Yewin objected loudly. The gallery erupted in whispers, but I only had eyes for my son, who was looking at me with tears running down his face. I'm sorry, Dad, he said. I'm so sorry. And just like that, everything changed again. Chapter 3. The weeks after Arwen filed for divorce were some of the strangest of my life. The penthouse felt like a museum, too big, too quiet, too full of things that didn't matter. I'd catch myself walking through rooms I never used, past furniture Arwen had chosen, wondering how I'd ended up here. But the strangest part was watching my son and my soon-to-be ex-wife become friends. It started small. I'd come home from work to find Legolas in the kitchen, even though it wasn't my custody weekend. "What are you doing here?" I'd asked, pleased but puzzled. "Arwen texted me," he'd said, not looking up from his phone. "She's going through a hard time." "She's going through a hard time?" I couldn't keep the incredulity out of my voice. "She's the one who filed for divorce." Legolas had looked at me then with those green eyes that were so much like his mother's. "Yeah, because you cheated on her. Just like you cheated on Mom." The parallel hurt because it was true. But something about the way he said it, like he was reading from a script, set off alarm bells in my head. Did Arwen say that? She didn't have to. Some patterns are pretty obvious, Dad. He'd left shortly after, but the unease lingered. Legolas had never shown any sympathy for Arwen before. Hell, he'd actively avoided her for 2 years, treating her with the kind of cold politeness usually reserved for telemarketers. The next incident happened a few days later. I'd come home early from a meeting to find them in the living room, Arwen and Legolas, sitting on the couch I'd bought with Rosie, sharing a pizza and laughing. I stood in the doorway, frozen by the sheer wrongness of it. Arwen was telling some story, gesturing with a slice of pepperoni in her hand, and Legolas was actually smiling. Not the forced smile he gave her at family dinners, but a real one. "Oh, Aragorn," Arwen said when she noticed me. "I didn't know you'd be home." "This is my home," I said, more sharply than intended. "Right, of course." She stood, smoothing her skirt, a nervous gesture I'd once found endearing. "I was just leaving." "Don't go because of him," Legolas said, and the casualness of it, the easy dismissal, felt like a slap. "No, sweetie, I should go. We'll continue this later." She touched his shoulder, a motherly gesture that made my skin crawl. "Sure," Legolas said. Sweetie? Since when was Legolas sweetie to her? After she left, I confronted him. "What's going on?" "What do you mean?" "You and Arwen, you hate her." "I don't hate her," he said, standing to leave. "I'm starting to realize she's a victim, too." "A victim?" "Legolas, What? She what, Dad? Fell in love with a married man who told her he was unhappy? Who promised her a future and then cheated on her, too? Yeah, what a villain." The words stung because there was truth in them. I had told Arwen I was unhappy with Rosie. I had painted myself as trapped in a loveless marriage. It was bullshit, of course, self-serving lies to justify what I wanted to do anyway. But I had said those things. "She knew I was married," I said weakly. "And you knew you were married too," Legolas shot back. "But only one of you took vows." He left me standing there, feeling like I'd lost another round in a fight I didn't even know I was having. The coffee date started the following week. Arwen would text Legolas, and he'd meet her at this little cafe in the village. I knew because I'd followed them once. I'm not proud of it, but I was desperate to understand what was happening. I sat in my car across the street, watching through the window as they talked. Arwen leaned forward, speaking earnestly, occasionally reaching across the table to touch his hand. Legolas nodded, absorbed in whatever she was saying. At one point, she pulled out her phone and showed him something. His eyes widened, and he shook his head. She showed him something else, and his expression shifted to anger. At me? At her? I couldn't tell. What I could tell was that she was working on him, systematically and deliberately. This wasn't random bonding over shared grievances. This was a campaign. I thought about confronting her, but Boromir advised against it. "Let her think she's winning," he'd said. "The more confident she gets, the more likely she is to overplay her hand." But it was torture watching it happen. Every day, Legolas pulled further away from me and closer to her. He started defending her in conversations, taking her side in arguments he wasn't even part of. "Arwen says the prenup isn't fair," he mentioned one evening over Chinese takeout. The prenup is standard, I said carefully. She knew what she was signing. She says you pressured her, that she was young and in love and you took advantage of that. Legolas, she had her own lawyer review it. A lawyer you recommended? I set down my chopsticks. How does she even know about the prenup details? He shrugged. We talk. About our divorce settlement? About a lot of things. That's inappropriate. More inappropriate than sleeping with your assistant while married to Mom? And there it was again, the trump card that ended every argument. My infidelity was the gift that kept on giving, the universal justification for any behavior, any betrayal, any alliance. But the worst part was yet to come. I'd been in my home office working late on a Friday night. The penthouse was quiet. Legolas was with Rosie for the weekend, or so I thought. I heard voices from down the hall, Arwen's and Legolas's. The study door was closed, but I could hear the murmur of conversation. I crept closer, feeling ridiculous but unable to help myself. Has to sound natural, Arwen was saying, like you're just remembering. I don't know if I can do this, Legolas replied. Sweetie, we've talked about this. You deserve that money. It should be yours, not tied up in legal battles or going to his next wife. He's my dad. Who betrayed you? Who betrayed your mother? Who's betraying me now? But lying in court, it's not lying. He did say he wanted to take care of you, didn't he? That everything he did was for you? Yeah, but then we're just clarifying his intentions, making sure his wishes are honored. I'd heard enough. I pushed open the door. They both jumped. Arwen recovered first, of course. Aragorn, I heard what you were doing. Legolas looked between us, his face flushed with guilt. You're coaching him to lie, in court, under oath. I'm doing no such thing, Arwen said coolly. Legolas and I were simply discussing his future. Get out. This is still my home too, technically. Get out. She stood, gathering her purse with exaggerated dignity. Legolas, think about what we discussed. Your future is important. After she left, I turned to my son. Please tell me you're not considering this. He wouldn't meet my eyes. She makes some good points. Good points? Legolas, she's asking you to commit perjury. She's asking me to tell the truth as I understand it. That's not the truth, and you know it. I never promised to leave you everything. You said everything you did was for me. That's not the same thing, and you know it. He stood abruptly. I have to go. Legolas, wait. But he was already heading for the door. She's using you, I called after him. Whatever she's promising you, she's lying. He paused at the doorway. Like you lied to Mom? Like you lied to her? Maybe that's just what people do in this family, Dad. They lie to get what they want. The door closed behind him with a quiet click that felt like a gunshot. I sat alone in my study, surrounded by the evidence of my success diplomas, awards, photos of deals closed and buildings bought. None of it mattered. I was losing my son, and I didn't know how to stop it. The next few weeks were agony. Legolas became more distant, more hostile. Every interaction felt like a test I was failing. Meanwhile, Arwen grew more confident, more serene. She'd swan into mediation meetings like she'd already won, making outrageous demands with a smile. I want the penthouse, the house in the Hamptons, and 70% of the liquid assets, she'd say, as casually as ordering lunch. That's insane, Boromir would respond. We'll see what the judge thinks when she hears all the evidence, Arwen would reply with a meaningful glance at me. She had Legolas, and she knew it. He was her ace in the hole, her nuclear option. Gimli, our butler, was the one who finally gave me concrete evidence of what was happening. He'd been with me for 5 years, a steady, quiet presence who'd somehow survived the transition from Rosie to Arwen. Mr. Miller, he said one evening, looking troubled, I need to speak with you. What is it, Gimli? It's about Mrs. Miller and young Legolas. I've overheard some things that concern me. My heart raced. What kind of things? She's been coaching him, sir, teaching him exactly what to say in court. They practice in the study when you're at work. She has him repeat certain phrases over and over until they sound natural. What phrases? That you promised him everything. That you said the estate would be his. That you told him not to worry about money because it would all be his one day. I never said any of that. I know, sir. but she's very convincing. She tells him it's not really lying, just interpreting. She says you owe him this after what you did to his mother. Would you testify to this? Gimli hesitated, then nodded. If needed, yes. Young Legolas is a good boy, but he's being manipulated. It's not right. I wanted to hug the man. Finally, someone else saw what was happening. There's more, sir, Gimli continued. Mrs. Miller has been meeting with someone. A man. They seem close. My blood ran cold. How close? I've seen them kiss, sir. In a car outside. She doesn't know I saw. Do you know who he is? A Mr. Faramir Davis, I believe. I've heard her mention the name on the phone. Faramir Davis. The name was vaguely familiar. Someone from her gym? A college friend? I made a mental note to have him investigated. Thank you, Gimli. This is very helpful. I hope so, sir. I've grown fond of young Legolas over the years. I'd hate to see him hurt by all this. So would I said quietly. So would I. That night, I tried one more time to reach my son. I wrote him a letter, pouring out everything I felt, my regret, my love, my fear for what he was about to do. Dear Legolas, I wrote, I know I've failed you in so many ways. I betrayed your mother, destroyed our family, and brought chaos into your life. I own all of that. Every mistake, every selfish choice, every moment I put my desires above your needs, I own it all. But what you're considering now lying in court won't heal those wounds. It will only create new ones. Perjury is a crime, son, and even if you're never caught, you'll have to live with it. Trust me, living with lies is its own kind of prison. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm not even asking you to love me, though God knows I love you more than life itself. I'm just asking you to tell the truth. Whatever that truth is, however much it hurts me, tell it. Because you're better than me, Legolas. You always have been. Don't let anyone, not even someone who claims to care about you, convince you otherwise. I love you, son. No matter what happens in that courtroom, no matter what you decide to say, I love you. That's the only promise I can make with absolute certainty. I will always love you. Dad. I slipped the letter under his bedroom door that night. I don't know if he read it, but I had to try. The night before the trial, I couldn't sleep. I wandered the penthouse like a ghost, touching things that suddenly seemed precious. The coffee table where Legolas had built elaborate Lego castles. The piano none of us knew how to play, but that looked impressive. The spot by the window where Rosie used to stand with her morning coffee, watching the city wake up. I'd had everything, and I'd thrown it away, not once but twice. And now I was about to lose what little I had left. But the universe has a funny way of intervening sometimes. Because that night, while I was wallowing in self-pity, and Arwen was no doubt rehearsing her victory speech, Legolas was about to discover something that would change everything. He just didn't know it yet, and neither did I. Chapter 4. The Saturday morning 2 weeks before the trial started like any other. I woke at 5:30, habit from years of early market calls, even though it was the weekend. The penthouse was tomb quiet, November rain pattering against the floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over Central Park. I made coffee, the expensive Blue Mountain beans Arwen had insisted on, which I'd kept buying out of inertia more than preference. As I stood at the kitchen counter, I heard voices from the study. Low, urgent voices that meant Legolas and Arwen were at it again. I'd started thinking of them as rehearsals, like they were preparing for a play where I was cast as the villain. The thought made my stomach turn, but I forced myself to move closer, to listen. Boromir had said we needed evidence. Well, here was my chance. Not just about what you say, but how you say it. Arwen was explaining, her voice patient, teacherly. You need to sound reluctant, like you don't want to reveal this, but your conscience demands it. I know, Legolas replied, and I could hear the weariness in his voice. We'd been at this for weeks now. Let's go through it again. When Eowyn asks about your father's promises, I say he told me not to worry about college or my future, that everything he had would be mine someday. And when did he say this? Multiple times. Most recently last Christmas when we were discussing my college applications. My hands clenched into fists. Last Christmas I'd told him not to worry about student loans, that I'd cover his education. That was it. Nothing about leaving him everything. Nothing about my entire estate. The way they were twisting my words, turning paternal reassurance into some kind of binding promise, made me sick. Good, Arwen said. But remember, you need to seem uncertain at first. Like you're not sure if you should mention it. Why? Because it makes you look honest, sweetie. Like you're struggling with loyalty to your father versus telling the truth. Judges eat that up. There was a pause. Then Legolas asked, "What if Dad's lawyer asks me directly if you told me to say this?" "Then you tell the truth that we discussed your testimony, but that everything you're saying is based on your own memories and understanding." Which is true, isn't it? Your father did say those things, even if he didn't mean them the way we're interpreting them. The sophistry of it, the careful parsing of truth and lies was masterful. Arwen had missed her calling. She should have been a lawyer herself. I'd heard enough. I walked back to my bedroom, my coffee growing cold in my hand, and called Boromir. "They're rehearsing again," I said without preamble. "Did you record it?" "No, Aragorn, we've been over this. Without proof, it's your word against theirs." My butler heard them. "Gimli will testify." "A butler's testimony against a son's? Come on, you know how that looks. Like you're paying someone to lie for you." I sank onto my bed, frustration eating at me. So what do? Just let them destroy me? We need more. Financial records showing Arwen has been planning this. Evidence of her affair with this Faramir character, something that shows she's not the victim she's pretending to be. Then get me a private investigator. Already on it. Toriel Jackson. She's the best in the city. Discreet, thorough, and she's worked divorce cases before. She'll meet you Monday at that coffee shop on Lexington, the one with the terrible scones. How do you know they have terrible scones? Because that's where I meet all my clients who need investigators. Safe to say I've tried the scones. Don't. Despite everything, I almost smiled. Anything else? Yeah, try to act normal. Don't confront them. Don't let on that you know what they're planning. Let Arwen think she's winning. Overconfidence makes people sloppy. Normal. Right. My son is conspiring with my ex-wife to destroy me, but sure, I'll act normal. I know it's hard, but trust me on this. The more secure Arwen feels, the more likely she is to make a mistake. After I hung up, I heard footsteps in the hallway. Legolas was leaving, probably heading to his mother's for the rest of the weekend. I opened my door, trying to look like I'd just woken up. "Morning," I said. He barely glanced at me. "Morning. You're up early." Couldn't sleep. "Want some breakfast? I could make pancakes. Remember when we used to—" "I'm not hungry." He was already at the elevator, pressing the button repeatedly like it would make it arrive faster. "Legolas, I have to go. Mom's expecting me." The elevator opened, and he disappeared inside before I could say anything else. I stood in the hallway for a moment, looking at the closed doors, remembering when he used to run to greet me when I came home. Now he couldn't leave fast enough. Monday came gray and drizzling, matching my mood perfectly. The coffee shop on Lexington was exactly as Boromir had described, trying too hard to be quirky with mismatched chairs and amateur art on the walls. And yes, the scones looked terrible. Toriel Jackson wasn't what I'd expected. She was younger, maybe early 30s, with red hair pulled back in a practical ponytail and eyes that seemed to catalog everything. She dressed like a graduate student: jeans, boots, oversized sweater, which I supposed was the point. No one would look at her and think private investigator. "Mr. Miller," she said, shaking my hand with a firm grip. "Boromir filled me in on the basics. Your wife is planning to use your son's testimony to claim you were hiding assets. You need ammunition to fight back." "That's about it, yeah. Tell me about Faramir Davis." "I don't know much. My butler saw them together, kissing." "When did the affair start?" "I don't know if it's an affair exactly." She gave me a look that suggested I stop kidding myself. "Your wife is kissing another man while using your son to get your money. Let's call it what it is." "Fair enough. I don't know when it started. Could be recent. Could have been going on for months." "I'll find out." She pulled out a tablet, fingers flying across the screen. "I'll need access to your credit card statements, phone records if you have them, anything that might show her spending patterns or communications. Whatever you need. And this butler Gimli? I'll need to interview him. He's at the penthouse most days. Very discreet. Good. Discreet is good. She looked up from her tablet. I need you to understand something, Mr. Miller. I'm going to find things out about your wife that might be uncomfortable. Affairs often are just the tip of the iceberg. Are you prepared for that? Was I? Did I really want to know the depths of Arwen's deception? But then I thought about Legolas, about what she was doing to him, and my resolve hardened. I'm prepared. Good. I'll start today. Oh. Surveillance on your wife, background check on Davis, forensic accounting on any accounts you shared. If she's hiding something, I'll find it. She stood to leave, then paused. One more thing. Your son, how deep is he in this? What do you mean? Is he a willing participant, or is he being manipulated? He's 18, angry at me. She's playing on that. But he's still choosing to go along with it. The words stung because they were true. Whatever manipulation Arwen was employing, Legolas was still making a choice. He's my son, I said simply. Toriel nodded, something softening in her expression. I have a teenage brother. I get it. But you need to be prepared for the possibility that he's more involved than you want to believe. After she left, I sat in that terrible coffee shop for a long time, watching the rain streak down the windows. The city moved past in a blur of umbrellas and hurried steps, everyone focused on their own dramas, their own problems. My phone buzzed, a text from Arwen. Need to get some things from the penthouse. We'll be there at 3. I texted back a simple okay and decided to be out when she arrived. The thought of seeing her, of pretending everything was normal while knowing what she was planning, was too much. Instead, I went to the office, buried myself in spreadsheets and conference calls, anything to avoid thinking about what my life had become. But focus was impossible. Every number reminded me of what I stood to lose. Every contract made me think of the prenup Arwen was trying to break. Around 2, Gimli called. Sir, I thought you should know. Mrs. Miller is here. She said 3. Yes, sir. She's with someone. A man. My blood ran cold. Faramir? I believe so, sir. They're in the study. Are they? What are they doing? Talking, sir. But the door is closed and they seem intimate. Can you hear what they're saying? Fragments, sir. Something about after the settlement and being patient. Gimli, I need you to do something for me. Can you record them? Just audio on your phone? There was a pause. Is that legal, sir? It's my home, and you're my employee witnessing a conversation in my study. Very well, sir. I'll see what I can do. I left the office immediately, but deliberately took my time getting home. Let them get comfortable. Let them think they had privacy. By the time I arrived, 45 minutes later, Arwen was alone in the living room going through what looked like photo albums. You're early, I said. She didn't look up. My meeting canceled, just getting some personal items. Photo albums are personal? Now she did look up, and there was something in her eyes I hadn't seen before. Not anger or calculation, but something almost like sadness. Our wedding album, she said, holding it up. Thought I should have it. Why? Planning to use it as evidence of my false promises? Contrary to what you might think, Aragorn, not everything is about the divorce. Some things are just memories. Good memories. She was quiet for a moment, flipping through pages. We were happy once, weren't we, in the beginning? The question caught me off guard. I thought we were. You thought... She laughed, but it was hollow. That's the problem, isn't it? You thought we were happy. You thought Rosie was happy, you think, but you don't know because you don't really see the people you claim to love. That's not... Isn't it? She stood, clutching the album. Did you ever really see me, Aragorn? Or was I just the younger, prettier upgrade? The assistant who laughed at your jokes and made you feel powerful? Arwen. I loved you, she said quietly. Despite what you think, despite what's happening now, I did love you. But you never loved me. You loved the idea of me, the fantasy. And when reality set in, when I became a real person with needs and opinions and flaws, you started looking elsewhere, just like you did with Rosie. That's not true. Isn't it? Then tell me what's my middle name? I opened my mouth, then closed it. I didn't know. We'd been married 2 years, and I didn't know my wife's middle name. Elizabeth, she said. My middle name is Elizabeth, after my grandmother who raised me when my parents died. But you never asked about that either, did you? About my parents, my childhood, my dreams beyond being Mrs. Aragorn Miller. The truth of it sat between us like a physical presence. She was right. I'd never asked, never dug deeper than the surface. I'd been content with the fantasy, the beautiful assistant who adored me. I'm sorry, I said, and meant it. Too late for sorry. She headed for the door, then paused. You want to know the really pathetic part? Even now, even after everything, part of me still loves you, or at least loves who I thought you were. Then why are you doing this? Why involve Legolas? Her expression hardened. Because love isn't enough. It never was, and your son deserves better than what either of us can give him. So you're using him to hurt me? I'm ensuring his future. Something you should have thought about before you destroyed his family. Twice. She left, taking the album with her. I stood in the living room feeling like I'd been punched in the gut, because underneath all the anger and manipulation, there was truth in what she'd said. I hadn't really known her. Just like I'd never really known what I had with Rosie until it was gone. Gimli appeared in the doorway. Sir? Did you get anything? Yes, sir. He handed me his phone. They were discussing money and plans to leave the city after the divorce is finalized. I listened to the recording. The quality wasn't great, but I could make out Arwen's voice. Just a few more weeks, darling. Once the settlement is done, and a man's voice, presumably Faramir, tired of hiding Arwen again, be worth it. Trust me, the boy, Legolas. They were talking about my son like he was just another asset, another tool in their plan. Thank you, Gimli. This helps. Sir, if I may, young Legolas is a good boy, but he's hurting. Perhaps if you talk to him, I've tried. Try harder, sir, before it's too late. That night, I did try. I waited until Legolas came home from school, then knocked on his door. Come in, he called. He was at his desk, laptop open, working on what looked like a college essay. How's the application going? Fine. Which school is that for? Columbia. Good school. Close to home. Yeah, well, I figured I should stay nearby in case. In case what? He turned to look at me. In case you need me to testify in any other divorces. The words were meant to wound, and they did. Legolas. What do you want, Dad? I want to talk to you. Really talk. About what? About how sorry you are? How you never meant to hurt anyone? I've heard it all before. About what Arwen's asking you to do. His expression shut down. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie to me, please. Whatever else is between us, don't lie. Like you never lied? I'm not perfect. I've made terrible mistakes. But I've never asked you to lie for me. Never put you in the position she's putting you in now. She's not putting me in any position. She's just helping me understand my rights. Your rights? What rights? The right to what you promised me. I never promised you my entire estate, Legolas. You know that. You said everything you did was for me. That's not the same thing. Isn't it? I sat on his bed, suddenly exhausted. Do you really believe that? Or is that just what she's told you to believe? He was quiet for a long moment. Does it matter? Of course it matters. The truth matters. Did it matter when you were sleeping with Arwen while Mom was at home waiting for you? Did it matter when you were kissing that woman from London? Those were mistakes. No, Dad. Mistakes are forgetting anniversaries or buying the wrong milk. What you did were choices, and now everyone else has to live with them. Including you making the choice to lie in court? I'm making the choice to secure my future. The future you put at risk with your behavior. That's Arwen talking, not you. Maybe. Or maybe she's the only one being honest with me. She's using you. Everyone uses everyone, Dad. You used Mom for the perfect family image while you played around. You used Arwen for excitement until you got bored. At least she's upfront about it. The cynicism in his voice broke my heart. At 18, he sounded like he'd already given up on the idea that people could be good, that love could be real. I love you, I said. That's not using. That's just true. If you loved me, you wouldn't have destroyed our family. You're right. I failed you. But don't let my failures turn you into someone you're not. Don't let Arwen make you into a liar. I'm already the son of a liar. What's the difference? I had no answer for that. How do you tell your son not to follow in your footsteps when your footsteps led straight to disaster? I stood to leave, then remembered the letter I'd written. Did you read what I wrote you? Yeah. And what? You want forgiveness? Fine, I forgive you. Happy? I want you to be okay. I'm fine. No, you're not. You're angry and hurt and being manipulated by someone who doesn't care about you. She cares more than you think. She cares about money. So do you. Not more than I care about you. He turned back to his laptop. I need to finish this essay. I was dismissed. I walked to the door, then stopped. The truth will come out, Legolas. It always does. And when it does, you'll have to live with whatever you say in that courtroom. Make sure it's something you can live with. He didn't respond, just kept typing. But I saw his fingers hesitate over the keys, just for a moment. 2 days later, Toriel called with news. I've been following your wife. She meets with Faramir Davis every day. Sometimes at his apartment, sometimes hotels. They're definitely having an affair. How long? Based on the hotel records I've found, at least 8 months. 8 months. While she was playing the wronged wife, she'd been sleeping with another man for 8 months. There's more, Toriel continued. I did a deep dive on her finances. She's been moving money. Small amounts. Nothing that would trigger alerts, but consistent transfers to an account in the Cayman Islands. She's hiding assets. Looks like it. About 200,000 so far. That's fraud. Yes, it is. But here's the interesting part. The account isn't just in her name. It's joint. With Faramir? No, with your son. The world tilted. What? She opened a joint account with Legolas 6 weeks ago. He had to sign for it, so he knows it exists. She's been depositing money there, presumably to hide it from the divorce settlement. But that makes Legolas complicit in fraud. Yes, if this comes out, he could face charges. I sank into my office chair. Arwen hadn't just manipulated my son into lying. She'd made him an accomplice to fraud. If he testified for her and this came out later, he'd be doubly implicated. Can you prove all this? I have bank records, hotel receipts, photos of them together. It's solid. Send everything to my lawyer. Already done. Mr. Miller, I'm sorry. I know this isn't easy. No, but it's necessary. Thank you. After I hung up, I sat in my office staring at nothing. Arwen had played this perfectly. She'd turned my son against me, made him her accomplice, and set things up so that even if I exposed her, Legolas would go down too. Unless. I called Boromir. I need options, I said. Legal ways to protect my son, even if Arwen goes down. If he's complicit in fraud, he's 18, being manipulated. There has to be something. Let me make some calls. But Aragorn, you need to prepare for the possibility that saving your son means losing everything else. Then I lose everything else. You're sure? I thought about Legolas at 5, grinning gap-toothed as he showed me a drawing of us as superheroes. Legolas at 10, crying in my arms after breaking his arm at soccer. Legolas at 13, looking at me with betrayal in his eyes as our family fell apart. I'm sure, I said, whatever it costs. The next few days were a blur of legal maneuvering and strategic planning. Boromir worked with prosecutors to potentially grant Legolas immunity if he testified truthfully. Toriel continued gathering evidence, and I waited, watching Arwen and Legolas continue their rehearsals, pretending I didn't know my world was about to explode. Then, 3 nights before the trial, everything changed. I was in bed, reading depositions, when I heard a crash from downstairs. Then voices Arwen's, raised in anger, and another I didn't recognize. I crept to the top of the stairs and listened. Told you to be patient, Arwen was saying. I'm tired of being patient, a man replied. Faramir, presumably. You said this would be quick. It will be. Just a few more days. And if the boy doesn't come through, he will. I've made sure of it. By dragging him into fraud? By ensuring he has skin in the game. He can't back out now without implicating himself. You're colder than I thought. You knew who I was when we started this. I thought I did, but using a kid, he's 18. And he's not my kid. He's just Aragorn's spoiled brat who needs to learn how the real world works. Jesus, Arwen. What? You're developing a conscience now? You didn't mind when we were planning to run off with Aragorn's money. That's different. How? Because Aragorn's an asshole who deserves it. The kid's just collateral damage. Everyone's collateral damage to someone. There was a long pause. Then Faramir spoke again, quieter. Sometimes you scare me. Good. You should be scared. We're playing for millions here. If you can't handle it, leave now. And if I do, then you get nothing. And I mean nothing, Faramir. You walk away empty-handed and alone. Another pause. Then footsteps heading toward the door. Where are you going? Arwen called. I need to think. There's nothing to think about. You're either in or out. I said I need to think. The door opened and closed. I heard Arwen curse, then the sound of glass breaking. Another vase, probably. I retreated to my room, mind racing. There was tension between Arwen and Faramir. He was having second thoughts about using Legolas. This was an opening, a crack in Arwen's plan. I called Tauriel immediately. I need you to approach Faramir Davis, I said. Tonight, if possible. Approach him how? He's having doubts about Arwen's plan. Maybe we can flip him. That's risky. Everything's risky at this point, but if we can get him to testify about Arwen's manipulation, it could change everything. I'm on it. I didn't sleep that night. I paced my room, stared out at the city lights, and wondered how we'd all gotten here, how love had turned to manipulation, family to fraud, trust to testimony. The trial was in 3 days. 3 days to save my son from Arwen, from perjury, from himself. 3 days to undo years of mistakes. The morning sun was just beginning to paint the sky pink when my phone rang. Tauriel. I found him, she said. Faramir. He was at a bar, drunk, conflicted. We talked. And he's willing to make a deal, full immunity for his testimony about Arwen's plan. Including how she manipulated Legolas? Everything. The fraud, the coaching, all of it. Relief flooded through me. That's perfect. There's one condition. What? He wants to meet with you. Face to face, today. Why? He says he needs to look you in the eye to know he's doing the right thing. I didn't hesitate. Set it up. Aragorn, this could be a trap. I don't care. If there's a chance to save my son, I'm taking it. Understood. I'll text you the details. As I hung up, I looked out at the city waking up below. Somewhere out there, Arwen was probably sleeping peacefully, confident in her plan. Somewhere, Legolas was wrestling with what he'd been asked to do. And somewhere, Faramir Davis was deciding whether to be the key to saving or destroying us all. The game was changing. The question was whether it was changing in time. 3 days until trial. 3 days to rewrite the ending to this tragedy. 3 days to prove that truth, however painful, was better than the prettiest lie. I thought about Legolas, about the boy he'd been and the man he was becoming. I'd failed him in so many ways, but maybe, just maybe, I could save him from making my mistakes. Starting with meeting the man who might hold the key to everything. Chapter 5. The midnight call to Boromir changed everything. I sat in my study, the same room where Arwen had been coaching my son to lie with the phone pressed to my ear and desperation clawing at my chest. Outside, Manhattan glittered like a jewelry box, all those lights representing lives that weren't falling apart the way mine was. We need evidence, Aragorn, Boromir said, his voice tinny through the phone. Something that proves Arwen is behind this lie or that she herself isn't the virtuous victim she claims to be. Evidence. Such a clean word for such a dirty process. But as I stared at the spot where I'd overheard Arwen rehearsing with Legolas, I knew Boromir was right. Playing defense wouldn't save us. We needed ammunition. There's a man, I said slowly. Faramir Davis. Gimli mentioned seeing them together. Together how? Intimately. There was a pause. I could practically hear Boromir's legal mind clicking into gear. If she's having an affair while claiming you destroyed the marriage with your infidelity, it makes her a hypocrite. It makes her a liar. Judges don't like liars. He cleared his throat. I know someone. Tauriel Jackson. Best PI in the city. Discreet, thorough, and she knows how to find things people don't want found. Set it up. 3 days later, I met Toriel at a coffee shop on Lexington that looked like it was trying too hard to be bohemian. Mismatched chairs, amateur art on the walls, and yes, Boromir was right, terrible-looking scones. Toriel wasn't what I expected. Early 30s, red hair and a practical ponytail, dressed like she was heading to a graduate seminar rather than surveilling cheating spouses. Which I supposed was the point. "Mr. Miller," she said, shaking my hand with a grip that meant business. "Boromir filled me in. Your wife is coaching your son to lie about hidden assets. That's the short version. There's a long version, so I told her. About the affair that ended my first marriage, the kiss with Claire that triggered this divorce, the Cayman Islands account I'd just discovered. With each confession, I felt smaller, like I was shrinking into the uncomfortable wooden chair. "You've made mistakes," Toriel said when I finished. It wasn't a question. Many. But that doesn't give her the right to manipulate your son. No, it doesn't. She pulled out a tablet, fingers already flying across the screen. "Tell me about Faramir Davis." "I don't know much. Mid-30s, drives a black Mercedes. Gimli saw them kissing." "When?" "Multiple times over the past few weeks, maybe longer." "I'll need access to credit card statements, phone records, anything that shows spending patterns." I slid a folder across the table. I'd come prepared. "Joint account statements for the past year. Her credit cards are in there too." She flipped through them with practiced efficiency. "Hotel charges? Page 12. The Carlisle. Not cheap." She looked up. "You didn't authorize these?" "I was supposedly at a conference in Boston that weekend." "Were you?" "Yes. 300 people can verify that." She nodded, making notes. "I'll need to interview your butler. Gimli? He's at the penthouse most days. Very discreet." "Good. Discreet witnesses are gold in divorce cases." She closed the folder. "Mr. Miller, I need you to understand something. I'm going to find things. Affairs often involve more than just sex. There might be financial impropriety, emotional manipulation, things that are uncomfortable to hear. I'm prepared. Are you? Because in my experience, husbands think they want to know everything until they actually know everything. I thought about Arwen, the woman I'd thrown away my family for, the woman now using my son against me. I need to know, for Legolas's sake." "All right, then." She stood, all business now. "I'll start surveillance today. Background check on Davis, forensic accounting on any accounts you shared. If she's hiding something, I'll find it." "How long?" "Give me a week, maybe less if she's careless." As it turned out, Arwen was very careless. The first report came 2 days later. I was in my office pretending to review contracts while actually staring at a photo of Legolas from his 10th birthday when Toriel called. "Can you meet?" she asked without preamble. Now. Now would be good. We met at a diner in Hell's Kitchen, the kind of place with cracked vinyl booths and coffee that could strip paint. Toriel slid a folder across the Formica table. "Your wife has been busy," she said. I opened the folder. The first thing I saw was a photo Arwen and a man I assumed was Faramir entering the St. Regis Hotel. The timestamp showed 2 p.m. on a Tuesday when she'd told me she was at her therapist. "Keep going," Toriel said. More photos. Arwen and Faramir at dinner, holding hands, kissing in his Mercedes, shopping together at Bergdorf's. In one, she was wearing a necklace I'd never seen before, diamonds that caught the light like captured stars. "How long?" I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know. "Based on the evidence, at least 8 months. 8 months. While I'd been wrestling with guilt over a single kiss with Claire, Arwen had been in a full-blown affair for 8 months. "There's more," Toriel said. "Page 10. I flipped to it. Bank statements, but not ones I recognized. "She opened an account in the Cayman Islands 6 weeks ago," Toriel explained. "She's been moving money there. Small amounts, nothing that would trigger alerts, but it adds up. About 200,000 so far." "That's fraud." "Yes, it is." Toriel leaned forward. "But here's the interesting part. Look at the account holder names." I looked closer. The account was joint. Arwen Miller and Legolas Miller. The diner seemed to tilt. "She put Legolas's name on it? He had to sign for it. He knows it exists. My son. My 18-year-old son was now complicit in fraud. If this came out after he testified for her." She's not just using him to lie, I said slowly. She's making him an accomplice. That appears to be the case. Can you prove all this? Bank records, hotel receipts, surveillance photos, it's solid. She paused. Mr. Miller, I also had Gimli formally document what he's witnessed. His statement is on page 15. I read Gimli's careful words describing late-night rendezvous, overheard phone calls, the gradual escalation of Arwen's relationship with Faramir. The loyalty in his decision to speak up was evident in every line. Your butler cares about your family, Toriel observed. He's been with us since Legolas was 13. He's more than staff. Those are the witnesses judges believe. She pulled out another folder. There's something else. I did a background check on Faramir Davis. And? He's not who he says he is. Or rather, he's exactly who he says he is, but that's not the whole story. I waited, my coffee growing cold between my hands. Faramir Davis, investment banker, Columbia MBA, all true, but he's also been married twice. Both divorces were acrimonious. Both ex-wives accused him of hiding assets. Like Arwen is doing. Exactly like that. He seems to have a pattern of dating married women, going through divorces, and helping them move money offshore. He's done this before. At least twice that I can document. She slid a photo across the table. It was Faramir with another woman, clearly taken years ago. That's his second wife. Notice anything? I looked closer. The woman was blonde, polished, probably early 30s in the photo. She looked like Arwen. Not exactly, but the type was clear. He has a preference, I said. He has a business model. Romance wealthy women during their divorces, help them hide assets, take a cut. And Arwen? Is either his latest mark or his partner. Either way, she's in deep. I stared at the evidence spread across the sticky diner table. Photos, statements, documents, the paper trail of betrayal. What about text messages? I asked. Working on it. I have a contact who might be able to retrieve deleted texts from her cloud backup. Give me another day or two. She was as good as her word. 2 days later, she had the texts. I read them in my office with the door locked, each message another twist of the knife. Arwen, can't wait to be done with this farce of a marriage. Faramir, patience, darling. Think of it as an investment. Arwen, the boy is primed. He'll say whatever I need him to say. Faramir, you're sure? Arwen, please. He hates his father more than he loves the truth. That one made me close my eyes. Is that what she really thought? That Legolas's anger at me was stronger than his integrity? The messages got worse. Faramir, what about after? The kid might talk. Arwen, after the money's transferred, we'll be gone. Let him talk to empty air. Faramir, Brazil? Arwen, or Switzerland, somewhere without extradition. They were planning to run, to take the money and disappear, leaving Legolas to deal with the consequences of his perjury alone. The last exchange was from yesterday. Arwen, 3 more days. Faramir, getting nervous? Arwen, excited. 3 more days and I'm free. Faramir, we're free. Arwen, right, we. Even in their private messages, I could sense the calculation, the careful dance of 2 people using each other while pretending at love. It was like looking in a mirror at my own past. The affair with Arwen had probably looked the same from the outside. 2 selfish people destroying everything around them for their own gratification. I called Boromir immediately. I have everything, I said. The affair, the fraud, the plan to flee the country. Send it all. I'll file emergency motions tonight. What about Legolas? He's implicated in the fraud. I'm working on immunity. If he testifies truthfully, we can protect him. You're sure? No guarantees in law, Aragorn. But I'm good at what I do. After I hung up, I sat in my dark office looking out at the city. Somewhere out there, Arwen was probably with Faramir, planning their escape. Somewhere, Legolas was wrestling with what he'd agreed to do. And somewhere, I hoped, was redemption for all of us. The phone rang. Toriel. There's been a development, she said. Good or bad? Depends on your perspective. Faramir Davis just booked 2 one-way tickets to Sao Paulo. Departure date is 3 days after your trial. 3 days to destroy me, steal my money, and run. The timeline was clear now. There's more, Toriel continued. I managed to get audio from one of their meetings. You need to hear this. She played the recording. The quality wasn't great, but I could make out Arwen's voice. Told you, the kid's completely under my thumb. His testimony will destroy Aragorn. The judge will give me everything, and then we're gone. Faramir's response was muffled, but I heard, "Sure he won't back out? Please. I've been playing the wounded stepmother for weeks. He thinks he's protecting me while getting revenge on Daddy. It's perfect." The recording ended. "When was this?" I asked. "Yesterday afternoon, at his apartment." "Can we use it in court?" "Boromir will know, but even if we can't, it's leverage. Leverage, evidence, ammunition, all these cold words for the hot mess my life had become." "Thank you," I said to Toriel. "Don't thank me yet. There's one more thing." My stomach dropped. "What?" "In my surveillance, I noticed something. Your son has been texting someone. A lot." "Who?" "His mother. Rosie. Rosie. My ex-wife, who I'd betrayed, who had every reason to hate me." "What are they saying?" "I don't know. Her phone is locked down tight. But the frequency increased dramatically in the past week. Whatever they're discussing, it's intense." I thought about Rosie, her fierce protectiveness of Legolas, her integrity even in the face of my betrayal, if she knew what Arwen was doing. "Keep monitoring," I said, "but don't dig into Rosie's privacy more than necessary. She's not part of this." "Understood." Toriel paused. "Mr. Miller, you have enough now to destroy your wife in court." "I don't want to destroy her. I just want to save my son." Sometimes those are the same thing. After she hung up, I sat alone with all this evidence of betrayal. 8 months of lies, 200,000 in fraud, a plan to flee the country, and my son caught in the middle of it all. I picked up my phone and scrolled to Rosie's number. My thumb hovered over it. We'd barely spoken since the divorce except about Legolas's schedules and needs. But if she was talking to him, if she knew what was happening. Before I could talk myself out of it, I hit call. She answered on the third ring. "Aragorn? Is everything okay?" "No," I said, and the honesty of it felt like relief. "Everything's not okay. It's about Legolas." "What about him? Can we meet? In person? There are things you need to know." A long pause. Then, "Tomorrow, Bryant Park, noon." "Thank you." "Aragorn?" Her voice was softer now. "Is he in trouble?" "Yes, but I'm going to fix it." "I have to fix it." "We'll fix it," she said, and the "we" was like a lifeline thrown to a drowning man. "Whatever it is, we'll fix it together." After she hung up, I looked at all the evidence spread across my desk. Photos of betrayal, documents of fraud, recordings of conspiracy. This was my ammunition, but it wasn't my weapon. My weapon was simpler, the truth. And tomorrow, I'd start wielding it. Chapter 6. Bryant Park at noon looked like a Monet painting, all soft November light filtering through the remaining leaves, turning everything golden. I got there 15 minutes early, bought 2 coffees from the vendor, still remembering that Rosie took hers with just a splash of milk, no sugar, and found a bench away from the lunch crowd. She arrived exactly on time. Rosie had always been punctual. 5 years had passed since our divorce, but she looked good. Different, but good. Her hair was shorter now, streaked with a few strands of silver she didn't bother to hide. She wore a simple wool coat and comfortable boots, practical, unpretentious. Everything Arwen wasn't. "You look well," I said, offering her the coffee. She took it, noticed it was fixed just right, and almost smiled. "You look tired." "I am tired." We sat in silence for a moment, watching the city swirl around us. Business people on their lunch breaks, tourists taking photos, a homeless man feeding pigeons, life going on while mine fell apart. "Tell me," Rosie said simply. So I did. Everything. Arwen's manipulation, the coaching sessions, the false testimony Legolas was prepared to give, the Cayman Islands account with his name on it, the fraud that could destroy his future. Rosie listened without interrupting, though I saw her knuckles go white as she gripped her coffee cup. "She put his name on a fraudulent account?" she said when I finished. "He had to sign for it. He's complicit. He's 18. Legally an adult. Barely." She turned to look at me directly. "How did we get here, Aragorn?" How did that little boy who used to build blanket forts become someone willing to lie in court? Because I broke him, I said. The words came out raw, honest. When I cheated on you, when I destroyed our family, I broke something in him. You broke all of us. I know. She studied my face, and I wondered what she saw. The man who'd betrayed her? The father desperate to save his son? Both? I've been talking to him, she said finally. He calls me, confused, angry. He knows what he's doing is wrong, but he's so hurt, Aragorn, so angry at you. He has every right to be... No. Her voice was firm. He has a right to be hurt. He has a right to be disappointed, but he doesn't have the right to destroy himself to punish you. Will you talk to him? About the testimony? I already have. Last weekend. She sipped her coffee, gathering her thoughts. He came to my apartment. You know I moved to Brooklyn? I didn't know. There was so much about their lives I didn't know. Nice place in Park Slope, she continued. Anyway, he came over and he was agitated. Kept asking if I thought you ever really loved us. God, Rosie. I told him the truth. That you did love us in your flawed, selfish way, but that your love wasn't enough to keep you from destroying everything. The words stung because they were true. But I also told him, she continued, that becoming like you, lying, betraying trust wasn't the answer, that he was better than that. What did he say? He cried. Her voice cracked slightly. My 18-year-old son sat in my kitchen and cried like he was 8 again, said he didn't know who to trust anymore. Did you tell him about Arwen? What she's really doing? I tried, but he's convinced she understands him, that she's the only one who gets his anger. Rosie laughed bitterly. She's good, I'll give her that. She found his weakness and exploited it perfectly. She's planning to run, Rosie. After the trial, she's taking the money and disappearing to Brazil with her boyfriend. Rosie's head snapped toward me. Boyfriend? Faramir Davis. They've been together 8 months. While married to you? While playing the wounded wife betrayed by my infidelity? Yes. That hypocritical bitch. The profanity was so unexpected from Rosie that I almost smiled. Sorry, but seriously? She's doing exactly what she's condemning you for? Worse. She's dragging Legolas into fraud. Rosie stood abruptly, pacing in front of the bench. I'd forgotten she did that when she was thinking hard wore paths in our old living room carpet with her pacing. We need to show him, she said. He won't believe words, but if he sees proof. I have proof. Photos, bank records, text messages. Then show him. He won't listen to me. Then I'll do it. She stopped pacing, decision made. Tonight. Bring everything to my apartment. We'll ambush him with the truth. You think he'll come? I'll tell him I'm making his favorite lasagna. He'll come. Despite everything, I smiled. The one with the extra ricotta? That's the one. She sat back down, closer this time. Aragorn, I need you to understand something. I'm not doing this for you. I know. I'm doing it for Legolas. He's about to make a mistake that will haunt him forever, and I won't let that happen. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. This might not work. He might be too deep in Arwen's web. He's a good kid. He is, but good kids can do bad things when they're hurting enough. We sat quietly again. The park was getting crowded as more people emerged for lunch. A couple walked by pushing a stroller, and I remembered doing the same with Rosie and baby Legolas, back when we thought we had forever. I owe you an apology, I said suddenly. Just one? Many, but specifically. I'm sorry I made you feel like you weren't enough. You were more than enough, Rosie. You were everything. I was just too stupid and selfish to see it. She was quiet for so long, I thought she wouldn't respond. Then, do you know what the worst part was? Not the affair itself, but the lying. Looking back and realizing that for 6 months, every I love you, every working late, every kiss goodbye was a lie. Not all of it was, don't. Her voice was sharp. Don't try to parse it. When you're betraying someone, everything becomes a lie. Every moment you're not confessing is a moment you're deceiving. She was right. Every dinner I'd shared with her while thinking about Arwen, every bedtime story I'd read to Legolas while texting my mistress, all of it was tainted. I'm sorry, I said again. knowing it would never be enough. I know you are, now, after you've lost everything. She turned to look at me. But would you be sorry if you'd never been caught? If I hadn't walked into that restaurant? The question hung between us like a blade. I don't know, I admitted. I want to say yes. That guilt would have driven me to confess, but honestly, I was very good at compartmentalizing, at justifying. At least you're honest about it now. Too little, too late. For us? Yes. But maybe not for Legolas. She stood to leave, then paused. 7 o'clock, 425 3rd Street, apartment 4B. Bring everything. Rosie? I called as she walked away. Do you think he can forgive me? She stopped, considered. I think forgiveness is less important than understanding. Help him understand why you did what you did, not excuse it, but understand it. Show him that people can change, can learn from their mistakes. Be the father he needs now, not the one you should have been then. That afternoon, I went home and did something I hadn't done in years. I sat in Legolas's room and really looked at it. Not the teenager's room it was now, with its gaming setup and college brochures, but the museum of his childhood it still contained. The baseball trophies from Little League when I'd coached his team. The science fair ribbon from 8th grade we'd built a volcano together, staying up until 2 a.m. the night before it was due. Photos tucked into his mirror frame. The three of us at Disney when he was 7, his middle school graduation, a candid shot of him and me fishing upstate. I picked up that fishing photo. He was maybe 11, holding up a tiny trout with the biggest grin on his face. I stood beside him, my hand on his shoulder, looking at him with such pride it made my chest ache now. When had I stopped looking at him like that? When had I become so absorbed in my own desires that I stopped seeing my son? On his desk was an envelope, my letter, still sealed. He hadn't even opened it. I sat on his bed and wrote another one. Not a letter this time, just a note. Legolas, your mom invited me for dinner tonight. I know things are complicated between us, but I'll be there. Not to pressure you or lecture you, just to be your dad, if you'll let me. Love always, Dad. I slipped it under his door, then gathered all of Toriel's evidence into a folder. Photos of Arwen and Faramir, bank statements, text messages, the whole sordid truth. At 6:45, I stood outside Rosie's building in Park Slope, holding that folder like a shield. The Brooklyn brownstone was charming, with window boxes and a bright blue door, so different from the Westchester house we'd shared, but somehow it suited this new version of Rosie. She buzzed me in without a word. When I reached 4B, the door was open and the smell of lasagna filled the hallway, such a domestic scent for such an undomestic situation. He's not here yet, she said, taking my coat. Drink? God, yes. She poured me a scotch. She remembered what I drank too, and a wine for herself. The apartment was small but warm, filled with plants and books and photos. Many of Legola's, some of her family, none of me. I hadn't expected any, but their absence still stung. Nice place, I said. It's home. She checked her phone. He texted, 5 minutes out. Are you nervous? Terrified. She took a large sip of wine. What if this backfires? What if he chooses her story over the truth? Then we deal with it in court, but at least we tried. She shook her head. Strange to be we again, even temporarily. United in crisis. The only time we were ever really a team was when it came to him. Before I could respond, we heard footsteps on the stairs, Young taking them 2 at a time. Legolas. He opened the door with his key, calling out, Mom, you better have made garlic bread too, because... He stopped dead when he saw me. What's he doing here? I invited him, Rosie said calmly. We need to talk, all 3 of us. About what? But his defensive tone suggested he knew exactly what. About Arwen, I said. His face shuddered. I'm leaving. Legolas, please, Rosie said. Just hear us out. You owe us that much. I don't owe him anything. Then you owe me. I'm your mother, and I'm asking you to listen. He stood in the doorway, poised for flight. Then, slowly, he closed the door and slouched into the living room. Fine. Talk. I opened the folder, spread the evidence across Rosie's coffee table. Your stepmother has been having an affair for 8 months. Legolas didn't even look at the photos. So, You cheated too. Yes, I did, but she's been lying about being the victim while doing the same thing. Maybe she found someone who actually appreciates her. Someone who's helping her steal money and plans to flee the country with her after the trial. That got his attention. What? I showed him the bank statements, the Cayman Islands account. Recognize this signature? He paled when he saw his own name. She said that was for my college fund. It's fraud, Legolas. She's using you to hide assets from the divorce. No. He shook his head. No, she said it was to protect my inheritance from Dad's future wives. There is no inheritance to protect if she takes it all and runs to Brazil. Brazil? I showed him the flight confirmations Toriel had found, 3 days after the trial. One-way tickets for her and Faramir Davis. But she promised. She promised to use you and leave you to deal with the consequences. Rosie sat beside him, put her hand over his. Sweetheart, we're not trying to hurt you. We're trying to protect you. From what? From perjury charges, from fraud charges, from destroying your future for someone who doesn't care about you. She does care. Then why is she leaving? I asked gently. Why is she planning to disappear with the money while you face potential criminal charges? He was quiet, staring at the evidence. I saw him pick up one of the text messages, the one where Arwen called him easy to lead. This is fake, he said weakly. It's not, and you know it, Rosie said. Deep down, you've known something was off. That's why you've been calling me so much, isn't it? You're having doubts. She understands me. She's using your pain against you, I said, and I gave her the ammunition to do it. He looked up at me then, and his eyes were wet. You did. You gave her everything she needed to turn me against you. I know, and I'm sorrier than you'll ever know, but don't let my failures turn you into someone you're not. Maybe I am this person. Maybe I'm just like you, a liar and a cheater. No, my voice was firm. You're nothing like me. You're better. You've always been better. Then why am I about to lie in court? Because you're hurt. Because you're 18 and someone you trusted is manipulating you. Because I hate you. The words came out broken, tearful. I know, I said. You have every right to hate me, but don't destroy yourself with that hate. He broke down then, sobbing like the child he still partly was. Rosie pulled him into her arms, and after a moment's hesitation, I moved to his other side. For the first time in 5 years, the three of us were together, united not in happiness but in pain. What do I do? Legolas asked through his tears. If I don't testify for her, she'll be so angry. Let her be angry, Rosie said. Her anger isn't your responsibility. But if I tell the truth, Dad wins. No, I said. If you tell the truth, you win. You keep your integrity, your future, your sense of self. And you keep your money. The money doesn't matter. He laughed bitterly. Right. I mean it. I'd give every penny to Arwen right now if it meant you'd walk away from this clean. He pulled back, studied my face. You would? In a heartbeat. Prove it. I pulled out my phone, called Boromir. I want to offer Arwen a settlement, everything she's asking for. Aragorn, that's insane. If she agrees to leave Legolas out of it completely, clear him of any involvement in the fraud, I'll give her what she wants. All of it? All of it. There was a long pause. I'll draft the offer. But Aragorn, just do it. I hung up, looked at my son. Done. You just gave up millions of dollars. I gave up nothing that matters more than you. For the first time in years, Legolas really looked at me, not with anger or disappointment, but with something like understanding. She won't take it, he said quietly. She wants to hurt you more than she wants the money. Then we'll face her in court. Together. Together? If you're willing, tell the truth, and we'll weather whatever comes. He was quiet for a long moment. Then, I need to think. Of course. The lasagna's ready, Rosie said, ever practical. Let's eat. Whatever happens, it shouldn't happen on an empty stomach. So we ate. The three of us at Rosie's small dining table eating lasagna and talking carefully about safe topics. Legolas's college applications, Rosie's work, anything but the trial in 2 days. It wasn't comfortable. Too much pain sat with us at that table. But it was something. A start, maybe. or an ending. Either way, we were together. As I was leaving, Legola stopped me at the door. Dad? Yeah? I recorded her, Arwen, last night. My heart stopped. What? I couldn't sleep, went to get water, heard her on the phone with someone Faramir, I guess. She was laughing about how stupid I was, how easy to manipulate. His voice cracked. I recorded it on my phone. Legolas. I'll testify. The truth, I mean. I'll tell them everything. I wanted to hug him but didn't dare. Thank you. I'm not doing it for you. I know. I'm doing it because I don't want to be like you, the old you, the lying you. The words hurt, but they were fair. That's a good reason. Mom's right. Understanding is more important than forgiveness. I understand why you did what you did. You were selfish and weak, but I don't have to be. No, you don't. I might never forgive you. That's okay. But maybe we can figure out something else. Not forgiveness, but something. I'd like that. He closed the door, and I stood in the Brooklyn hallway, lighter than I'd been in months. Not happy, too much damage for happy, but hopeful. Tomorrow, we'd prepare. The next day, we'd face Arwen in court. And whatever happened, my son would tell the truth. It was more than I deserved, but exactly what he needed. Sometimes that's what love is, giving someone what they need, not what you deserve. Chapter 7. The war room was ready. Boromir had transformed his law firm's conference room into what looked like a situation room from a political thriller. Whiteboards covered with timelines and strategy, boxes of evidence labeled and indexed, 3 laptops running simultaneously. The coffee maker worked overtime, filling the air with the bitter scent of too many late nights. "We have one shot at this," Boromir said, standing before his whiteboard like a general before battle plans. "Arwen's lawyer is good. Eowyn Taylor doesn't lose often, but she's operating on false information. She thinks Legolas is their star witness." "He was," I said from my seat at the conference table. "Until last night. And now he's ours, but we can't let them know that." Tauriel sat across from me, fingers flying across her laptop keyboard. "I've been monitoring Arwen's communications. She's confident. Too confident. Last text to Faramir said 2 more days until freedom." "Let her think that," Boromir said. "Overconfidence makes people sloppy. Aragorn, you need to play your part perfectly in mediation tomorrow." Which is the beaten man, desperate, frightened, willing to settle for anything to avoid the disaster of Legolas's testimony. That shouldn't be hard. Until yesterday, that's exactly what I was. Gimli sat in the corner, having been brought in to review his statement one more time. His loyalty humbled me. He could have stayed out of this mess, kept his head down, but he'd chosen to stand up for what was right. "Mr. Anderson," Boromir addressed him formally, "you're certain about what you witnessed?" "Absolutely certain, sir. Mrs. Miller coached young Legolas for hours. I heard her exact words. Remember, you're not lying, you're interpreting. Made my skin crawl, it did." "And you're prepared to testify to this?" "I've served the Miller family for 5 years. I won't stand by while someone corrupts that boy." The door opened and Legolas walked in with Rosie. He looked pale but determined, wearing the suit I'd bought him for graduation like armor for battle. "How are you holding up?" I asked. "I'm okay." He didn't quite meet my eyes. "Nervous." "That's normal," Boromir said. "Let's go over what will happen. Arwen's side will call you as their witness. You'll take the stand, be sworn in. Eowyn will start with friendly questions, establishing your relationship with your father." "And I answer honestly?" "Completely honestly. But, and this is important, don't volunteer the recording yet. Let them dig their own grave first." Legolas nodded, sitting down beside his mother. Rosie's presence seemed to steady him, her hand on his shoulder a grounding force. "When Eowyn asks about any promises," Boromir continued, "you pause. Look conflicted. Then tell the truth that your stepmother asked you to lie." "She'll deny it," Legolas said. "Of course she will. That's when we introduce your recording. The judge will have to allow it. It's direct evidence of witness tampering. What if Arwen tries to talk to me before? To make sure I'm still on board?" "Let her," Boromir said. Be vague, nervous. Say you're ready but anxious. Don't tip our hand. Toria looked up from her laptop. Speaking of tipping hands, we have a problem. Everyone turned to her. Faramir just moved their flight. Instead of 3 days after trial, it's now the evening of the trial. They're spooked, Boromir said. Or just eager, I suggested. Either way, it means they're planning to run immediately after getting the settlement. We need to alert the court. No, Boromir said thoughtfully. We use it. Your Honor, the defendant is literally packed and ready to flee with money she obtained through fraud. It paints a picture. The morning of mediation arrived gray and drizzling, fitting the mood perfectly. I dressed carefully good suit, but not my best, wanting to look respectable but stressed. Which wasn't hard. The mediation was held at a neutral law office, all beige walls and abstract art that probably cost more than most people's cars. Arwen arrived looking like victory personified designer dress, perfect makeup, an expression of serene confidence. Aragorn, she said coolly. Arwen. We sat across from each other at a polished table, our lawyers flanking us like seconds at a duel. The mediator, a silver-haired woman named Patricia, looked between us with the weary expression of someone who'd seen too many marriages die. Let's begin with assets, Patricia said. Mrs. Miller, what are you seeking? Yowen slid a paper across the table. The penthouse, the Hamptons house, 70% of liquid assets, and full ownership of the art collection. That's insane, Boromir said, playing his part. It's what my client deserves after Mr. Miller's betrayal, Eowyn replied smoothly. And once certain testimony is heard, I think the judge will agree. Arwen smiled slightly. The threat was clear. Give me what I want, or Legolas destroys you. I let my shoulders slump, the picture of defeat. What if? What if I agreed to 60%? Boromir turned to me sharply. Aragorn. I just want this over, I said, letting exhaustion color my voice. 70, Arwen said. Non-negotiable. That would leave my client nearly destitute, Boromir protested. He should have thought of that before he cheated, Arwen said. And the irony of it, her sitting there condemning me for exactly what she'd been doing, almost made me laugh. I need to think, I said weakly. You have until tomorrow, Yowen said. After that we go to trial and everything comes out. As we left, Arwen passed close to me, whispered, You never should have crossed me. I wanted to respond, to tell her I knew about Faramir, about the fraud, about everything. But I just nodded, defeated. That afternoon, I met with Legolas one more time. How do you feel? I asked. We were in Rosie's apartment again, neutral ground. Scared, he admitted. What if I freeze? What if I can't do it? You can, Rosie said firmly. You're stronger than you know. What if Arwen figures it out? Realizes I'm not on her side anymore. She won't, I said. She's too convinced of her own brilliance. She thinks she's played everyone perfectly. She almost did, Legolas said quietly. If I hadn't heard that phone call. But you did. That's what matters. He pulled out his phone, played the recording again. Arwen's voice filled the room. Legolas will do exactly what I trained him to do. The boy's so desperate for approval, he'd say anything I told him to. He clicked it off. She never cared about me at all. No, I agreed. She only cared about winning. Like you only cared about Arwen when you were with Mom? The parallel stung. Yes, like that. At least you're honest about it now. That night I couldn't sleep. Tomorrow would determine everything, my financial future, my relationship with my son, Arwen's fate. I stood at my penthouse window looking out at the city lights and thought about how we'd all gotten here. A chain of selfishness and betrayal, each link forged by someone's weakness. Mine, when I cheated on Rosie. Arwen's, when she decided to use my son for revenge. Even Legolas's, when he'd agreed to lie for her. But tomorrow we had a chance to break that chain. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Everything set for tomorrow night. Can't wait to celebrate. F. Faramir. He'd texted the wrong number meant for Arwen, but sent to me instead. I screenshotted it immediately, sent it to Boromir. His response was immediate. Perfect. Another nail in the coffin. The next morning dawned bright and cold, the kind of New York day that made everything look sharper, clearer. I arrived at the courthouse early with Boromir and Toriel. "Remember," Boromir said, "let them think they're winning right until the moment they're not." Gimli arrived, looking uncomfortable in his formal suit, but determined. "Ready to do my part, mister." Miller. "Thank you, Gimli, for everything. It's the right thing to do, sir." Rosie and Legolas arrived together. My son looked pale but resolved, his jaw set in a way that reminded me of Rosie when she'd made up her mind about something. "You good?" I asked him. "No, but I'm ready." Arwen swept in with Eowyn, both of them radiating confidence. She gave Legolas a warm smile, a little nod of encouragement, playing the supportive stepmother right to the end. "All rise," the bailiff called, and Judge Galadriel Lopez entered. The trap was set. Now we just had to spring it. Chapter 8. The penthouse was dark when Legolas got home that night. The eve of the trial, and sleep was impossible for any of us. He'd later tell me every detail of what happened, how it felt like the universe itself was guiding him to the truth. He couldn't sleep, his mind churning over what he'd agreed to do, what we'd discussed at his mother's apartment, the weight of tomorrow's testimony. At 11:47 p.m., he went downstairs for water. The penthouse was tomb quiet, just the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sounds of the city below. But as he passed Arwen's study, the same room where she'd coached him, he saw light under the door and heard her voice. He froze. "By this time tomorrow, darling, I'll have a hefty settlement," Arwen was saying, her voice light, almost giddy. Legolas pressed closer to the door. "Yes, of course, Legolas will do it. The kid's so easy to lead." My son later told me it felt like being punched. Even knowing what we'd shown him, even seeing the evidence, some part of him had still wanted to believe she cared. "Once we get the money, we'll disappear for a while," Arwen continued. "I don't actually care what happens to Aragorn or that brat after that." That brat. Legolas pulled out his phone with shaking hands, opened the recording app. The next words would become the key to everything. Arwen laughed, a sound Legolas had never heard from her before, cold and cruel. "The boy actually thinks I care about him. It's almost sad how desperate he is for a mother figure. Well, his real mother was too weak to keep his father, and now he's too weak to see he's being used." "You're ice cold," Faramir's voice came through the phone, tinny but audible. "Remind me never to cross you. Just be at the airport tomorrow night. Our flight's at 9. By the time anyone figures out where the money went, we'll be on a beach in Brazil. What about the kid? He might talk. Let him. Who's going to believe him? He'll have committed perjury by then. His credibility will be shot and I'll be gone." Legolas recorded all of it, tears streaming down his face. The woman he'd trusted, who'd promised to protect his inheritance, who'd claimed to understand his pain, she was worse than his father had ever been. At least I'd betrayed out of weakness and desire. Arwen was betraying out of calculation and greed. He stood there for 5 more minutes, recording her celebration, her mockery, her complete dismissal of him as anything more than a tool. When she finally ended the call, he ran, not walked, ran back to his room, and then he called me. It was 12:23 a.m. when my phone rang. I was awake, staring at the ceiling, running through tomorrow's plans for the 100th time. "Legolas," I answered immediately, concerned. "What's wrong?" "Dad?" His voice was broken, young. "Dad, I need you." I was out of bed before he finished the sentence. "Where are you?" "My room. Can you come, please?" "I'm coming right now." I threw on clothes, grabbed my keys. The drive from my hotel to the penthouse I'd been staying elsewhere to avoid Arwen took 12 minutes. I made it in 8. I found him sitting on his bed, still in his pajamas, looking smaller than his 18 years. His face was streaked with tears, his phone clutched in his hand like a lifeline. "Son, what happened?" "I recorded her," he said, and his voice was hollow. "I heard her talking to Faramir." "What did she say?" He played it for me. Every word was a dagger, but not to me. I already knew who Arwen was. The pain was watching my son's face as he listened to himself being dismissed, mocked, used. When it finished, he looked at me with eyes that broke my heart. "She never cared about me at all." "No, I said gently. She didn't. She called me weak. Said I was desperate for a mother figure. You're not weak. You're 18 years old and someone you trusted manipulated you. I was going to lie for her, in court, under oath. But you're not going to now. No. His voice got stronger. No, I'm not. I sat beside him on the bed, careful not to crowd him. I'm proud of you. For what? For almost committing perjury? For having the courage to find the truth and face it. He was quiet for a moment. Then, I wanted to hurt you. When she first suggested it, all I could think about was how much I wanted you to pay for destroying our family. I know. But listening to her tonight, she's doing the same thing you did. Worse. At least when you cheated, you weren't planning to frame anyone or steal money or run away. I was selfish and weak. She's calculating and cruel. Both are wrong, but there's a difference. Yeah. He turned to look at me directly. Dad, I'm sorry. You have nothing to be sorry for. I do, though. I let my anger turn me into someone I'm not. Someone willing to lie and cheat. You didn't go through with it. Only because I found out she was using me. No, I said firmly. You were already having doubts. Your mom told me you'd been calling her, questioning everything. You would have found your way to the truth. You don't know that. I know you. You're a good person, Legolas. Even when you're hurt, even when you're angry, there's a core of integrity in you that won't be corrupted. I got that from Mom. You got it from both of us. I may have lost sight of my integrity for a while, but it was there once. You've reminded me what it looks like. We sat in silence for a moment. Then Legolas asked, What do we do now? We call Boromir. We make sure this recording is admissible. And tomorrow, we tell the truth. Together? If you'll have me, yes, together. He nodded, then did something he hadn't done in years. He hugged me. Not a quick, obligatory hug, but a real one. The kind where you hold on because you need to. We'll fix this, I whispered into his hair. I promise. I know, he said. We'll fix it together. We called Boromir, who answered on the second ring despite the hour. We have her, I said simply. Legolas recorded everything. Send it to me immediately. I'll file emergency motions tonight. While Legolas sent the file, I called Rosie. It's 1 a.m, she answered, groggy but immediately alert. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Everything's right. Legolas recorded Arwen admitting to everything. Oh, thank God. I heard her sitting up. Is he okay? He's shaken but determined. We're at the penthouse. I'm coming over. You don't have to. My son needs me. I'm coming. She arrived 30 minutes later in yoga pants and an old Columbia sweatshirt, her hair pulled back in a messy bun. She'd never looked more beautiful to me, not because of how she looked, but because she'd dropped everything to be here for our son. Baby, she said to Legolas, pulling him into a fierce hug. I'm so proud of you. I almost did it, Mom. I almost lied for her. But you didn't. That's what matters. Tauriel arrived next, then Boromir, and suddenly my son's bedroom had become a war room. Boromir had his laptop out, typing furiously. The recording is clear, he said. Legally obtained, Legolas was in his own home, recording a conversation that involved him directly. It's admissible. What's our play? I asked. We let them call Legolas. Let Eowyn start her questioning. When she asks about promises, Legolas tells the truth about the coaching. They'll deny it. Then we play the recording. It'll destroy her, Tauriel said. Yes, Boromir agreed. It will. I looked at Legolas. Are you okay with that? Destroying her publicly? He thought about it, then nodded. She was going to destroy us publicly. At least we're using the truth. Dawn was breaking by the time everyone left. Legolas had fallen asleep on his bed, exhausted by emotion and revelation. Rosie and I stood in the doorway watching him sleep. He looks so young, she said softly. He is young. Too young for all of this. But old enough to know right from wrong. Old enough to choose truth over lies. He gets that from you. He gets it from himself. She turned to look at me. You did good tonight, Aragorn. Being there for him, not pushing, just being his dad. It's the least I could do. No, the least would be nothing. This was something. We stood there, two people who'd once promised to love each other forever, watching our son sleep. We weren't those people anymore. Too much had happened. Too much had broken. But we were still his parents, still united in that, if nothing else. I should go, Rosie said. Let him rest. Big day tomorrow. Rosie, thank you. For everything. For being there for him when I couldn't be. For helping him find his way back to the truth. I didn't do it for you. I know, but still, thank you. She nodded, gathered her things. At the door, she paused. Aragorn, don't let him down tomorrow. Whatever happens in that courtroom, be the father he needs. I will. I promise. After she left, I sat in the living room of the penthouse, this space that had been my prison and Arwen's stage for manipulation. In a few hours, we'd go to court. The truth would come out. Arwen would fall. But more importantly, my son would stand up and tell the truth. He would refuse to be corrupted by pain and anger. He would be better than I had been. My phone buzzed. A text from Arwen. Hope you're ready for tomorrow. It's going to be memorable. I almost laughed. She had no idea how memorable it would be. I typed back, yes, it will be. Then I deleted the conversation, went to check on Legolas one more time. He was still sleeping, his face peaceful. The recorder app was still open on his phone. That damning conversation saved and backed up in 3 places. Tomorrow, today, technically everything would change. The lies would be exposed, the truth would triumph, and maybe, just maybe, my family would begin to heal. I sat in the chair beside his bed, keeping watch like I used to when he was small and had nightmares. I've got you, I whispered to my sleeping son. This time, I've got you. The morning sun crept through his windows, painting everything gold. A new day, a chance for truth. We were ready. Chapter 9. Dawn crept over Manhattan like a cautious promise. I stood at my hotel window watching the city wake up, knowing that in a few hours everything would change. The recording on Legolas's phone, that devastating evidence of Arwen's betrayal, sat backed up in 3 different places. We were ready. Or at least, as ready as you can be to destroy someone who once shared your bed. My phone buzzed. A text from Legolas. On my way to courthouse with Mom. See you there. The fact that he'd texted at all felt like a miracle. 24 hours ago, he'd been prepared to lie under oath. Now he was my ally, my son again, fragile maybe, but real. I arrived at the courthouse at 7:30, an hour before we were due in conference with Boromir. The building loomed against the gray November sky, all limestone and authority. How many families had been made and unmade within those walls? You're early, Boromir said, appearing beside me with 2 coffees. He knew I took mine black, the kind of detail good lawyers remember. Couldn't sleep, I admitted, accepting the coffee gratefully. Nervous? Terrified? He nodded. Good. Overconfidence is what killed Arwen's case. Stay sharp, stay humble. We made our way to Conference Room B, where Toriel was already set up with her laptop and color-coded folders. Morning, gentlemen, she said without looking up. I've verified the recording 3 times. It's authentic, admissible, and devastating. And Gimli? I asked. In the hallway, ready if we need him. He's wearing his best suit and looks thoroughly respectable. The door opened, and Rosie walked in with Legolas. My son looked pale but determined, wearing the navy suit-like armor. Rosie had her hand on his shoulder, not possessive, just supportive. The united front they presented made my chest tight with something between regret and gratitude. How are you holding up? I asked Legolas. I didn't sleep, he said. Keep thinking about what she said. That brat. That's what she called me. She showed you who she really is, Rosie said firmly. That's a gift, even if it doesn't feel like one. Boromir spread papers across the conference table. Let's go over this one more time. Arwen's side will call Legolas first. They're expecting him to testify that Aragorn promised him everything. Which I never did, I interjected. Which you never did, Boromir confirmed. Eowyn Taylor will start with softball questions establishing relationship, family dynamics. Legolas, you answer honestly, but don't volunteer the recording yet. When do I reveal it? Legolas asked. When Eowyn asks about specific promises, that's when you pause, look conflicted, then tell the truth about the coaching. They'll deny it. That's when we play the recording. What if Judge Lopez won't allow it? She will, Boromir said confidently. It's direct evidence of witness tampering and fraud. No judge would exclude that. Tauriel looked up from her laptop. Arwen just arrived. She's with Eowyn and, interesting, Faramir's not with her. He wouldn't dare show his face, I said. Or she told him to stay away, Rosie suggested. Keep her image as the wronged wife intact. We spent the next 20 minutes reviewing every possible scenario. What if Arwen tried to approach Legolas? What if she claimed the recording was doctored? What if she broke down crying? Let her cry, Boromir said coldly. Tears don't erase fraud. At 8:45, we made our way to courtroom 7. The hallway was already filling with people, some involved in our case, others just the usual courthouse traffic of broken marriages and custody battles. I saw Arwen before she saw me. She stood near the water fountain, immaculate in a dark green suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Her hair was pulled back in an elegant chignon, pearls at her throat. She looked like a senator's wife, not a schemer about to be exposed. Then she turned and our eyes met. For a moment, neither of us moved. 5 years of history hung between us, the passion, the betrayal, the war we'd waged. Her lips curved in a small, confident smile. She still thought she'd won. Mr. Miller, she said as we passed, her voice honey-sweet with victory she hadn't earned yet. Arwen, I replied, keeping my voice neutral. She leaned closer, whispered, I hope you said goodbye to that penthouse. I wanted to tell her about the recording, about how her world was about to implode. Instead, I just said, we'll see. Inside the courtroom, the setup was the same as always, but felt completely different. The high windows let in sharp morning light that cut across the floor in geometric patterns. The gallery was fuller than usual. Word must have gotten out that something dramatic was expected. Gimli sat in the third row, looking uncomfortable but determined in his dark suit. I caught his eye, nodded my thanks. His loyalty through all this had been extraordinary. All rise, the bailiff called, and Judge Galadriel Lopez entered. She looked exactly as I remembered, steel-gray hair pulled back severely, eyes that missed nothing, black robes that seemed to add to her already formidable presence. Be seated, she said, settling behind the bench. We're here for the continuation of Miller versus Miller. Are both parties ready to proceed? Ready, Your Honor, Eowyn Taylor said, standing. She looked polished and prepared, completely unaware her case was about to collapse. Ready, Your Honor, Boromir echoed. Judge Lopez looked between the two tables. I want to remind everyone that I expect complete honesty in my courtroom. Perjury is a serious crime. Witness tampering is a serious crime. I will not hesitate to refer matters to the district attorney if I discover any impropriety. Is that clear? Yes, Your Honor, both lawyers said. Did Arwen flinch slightly? Or was that my imagination? Miss Taylor, call your first witness. The plaintiff calls Legolas Miller to the stand. This was it. My son stood, straightened his jacket, and walked to the witness stand with the careful dignity of someone carrying nitroglycerin. Every eye in the courtroom followed him. The bailiff held out a Bible. Please place your left hand on the Bible and raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do, Legolas said, his voice clear and steady. He sat down, and I could see his hands trembling slightly where they rested on his lap. Across the courtroom, Arwen gave him an encouraging smile, the same smile she'd been giving him for weeks, the puppet master pulling strings she thought were still attached. Eowyn approached the witness stand with practiced confidence. Good morning, Legolas. Good morning. I know this is difficult for you. No one enjoys testifying in their parents' divorce proceedings. Legolas nodded but said nothing. Let's start with something simple. How would you describe your relationship with your father? This was the same question from that first day, the question that had started this whole performance. But now everything was different. Now we had truth as our weapon. It's complicated, Legolas said. We were very close when I was younger. Then he hurt our family, and things became strained. When you say he hurt your family, what do you mean? He had an affair with Arwen with his current wife while married to my mother. How did that affect you? Legolas was quiet for a moment, and I could see him gathering himself. It destroyed me. I looked up to him, and he betrayed everything our family stood for. Arwen nodded slightly, pleased with this response. It fit her narrative perfectly. And your relationship with your stepmother, Arwen? Eowyn continued. Initially, I hated her. She represented everything that had gone wrong. Initially? Did that change? Here it comes, I thought. The moment where the script would either play out or shatter. Yes, Legolas said slowly. After she and my father separated, she reached out to me. We talked. She seemed to understand my anger. She supported you? I thought she did. Eowyn paused slightly at the past tense. You thought? Legolas looked directly at Arwen then, and I saw something pass between them, not the conspiratorial connection Arwen expected, but something else. Judgment, maybe. Or pity. Yes, he said. I thought she cared about me. I was wrong. The courtroom went very still. Arwen's confident smile faltered. What do you mean you were wrong? Eowyn asked, clearly off script now. I mean that Mrs. Miller manipulated me. She coached me to lie in this courtroom about promises my father never made. The explosion was immediate. Arwen shot to her feet. Legolas, what are you doing? Mrs. Miller, sit down, Judge Lopez commanded, her voice sharp as a blade. He's lying, Arwen said, her composed mask cracking. Aragorn got to him. Mrs. Miller, you will sit down immediately or be held in contempt. Arwen sat, but her face was flushed, her hands clenched. Eowyn looked like someone had pulled the floor out from under her. Your Honor, I request a brief recess to confer with my client. Denied. Continue with your witness. Eowyn turned back to Legolas, visibly scrambling. Legolas, are you saying you were prepared to lie under oath? Yes, I'm sorry. I was angry at my father and Mrs. Miller convinced me it was justified. This is ridiculous, Arwen burst out again. Judge Lopez's gavel came down hard. Mrs. Miller, this is your last warning. One more outburst and you'll be removed from the courtroom. Your Honor, Boromir stood. We have evidence that supports Mr. Miller's testimony. What kind of evidence? An audio recording from last night, in which Mrs. Miller discusses her manipulation of the witness. Eowyn jumped up. Objection! We've had no notice of this recording. It could be fabricated. The witness himself made the recording, Boromir interrupted, in his own home of a conversation that directly involved him. Judge Lopez leaned forward. I'll hear it. Boromir nodded to Legolas, who pulled out his phone with shaking hands. The courtroom was so quiet I could hear my own heartbeat as he pressed play. Arwen's voice filled the room, crystal clear and damning. By this time tomorrow, darling, I'll have a hefty settlement. Yes, of course Legolas will do it. The kid's so easy to lead. I watched Arwen's face go white as her own words condemned her. Once we get the money, we'll disappear for a while. I don't actually care what happens to Aragorn or that brat after that. Several people in the gallery gasped. Judge Lopez's expression was stone. The recording continued, each word another nail in Arwen's coffin. Her laughter as she called Legolas gullible. Her plans to flee to Brazil. Her complete dismissal of the young man she'd pretended to care about. When it ended, the silence was deafening. Your Honor, Eowyn said weakly, I request a recess to... Sit down, Miss Taylor. Judge Lopez's voice could have frozen fire. She turned to Arwen. Mrs. Miller, do you deny that's your voice on that recording? Arwen opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. It's taken out of context. It seems quite clear in context to me. You manipulated an 18-year-old into agreeing to commit perjury. You planned to defraud this court and flee the country with assets you obtained through that fraud. Your Honor, I can explain. You'll have a chance to explain. To the district attorney. She turned to the bailiff. Please contact the DA's office. We have a matter for their immediate attention. Your Honor, Eowyn tried one more time. My client has been under enormous stress. Your client is a criminal, Miss Taylor, and if you knew about any of this, you're facing disbarment. I had no knowledge of any coaching or manipulation, Ioan said quickly, shooting Arwen a look of pure fury. Judge Lopez turned back to the witness stand. Mr. Miller Legolas, I want to commend you for having the courage to tell the truth. I know this wasn't easy. Thank you, Your Honor, Legolas said, his voice barely above a whisper. You may step down. As Legolas walked back to our side of the courtroom, he had to pass Arwen. She reached out, grabbed his arm. How could you? She hissed. I was going to take care of you. No, Legolas said, pulling free. You were going to use me and throw me away, just like you did to my father. He sat down between Rosie and me, and I felt his hand brush mine, not quite holding it, but acknowledging I was there. It was enough. It was everything. Chapter 10. Judge Lopez called a 15-minute recess, but those were the longest 15 minutes of my life. Arwen sat at her table, head in her hands, while Ioan stood as far from her client as the courtroom would allow, furiously texting what I assumed were damage control messages to her firm. You did great, I whispered to Legolas. I feel sick, he replied. That's normal, Rosie said, rubbing his back. You just did something incredibly brave. Or incredibly stupid. What if she gets out of this somehow? What if she comes after me? She won't, Boromir said firmly. She's finished. The DA will file charges. Her assets will be frozen pending investigation, and she'll be lucky if she avoids jail time. Across the room, I heard Arwen's voice rising as she argued with Ioan. You have to fix this. Fix this? You lied to me. You made me complicit in fraud. My career could be over because of you. I'm paying you to. You're paying me with money you obtained through fraud. I'm withdrawing as counsel as soon as this hearing ends. You can't do that. Watch me. The bailiff called us back to order. Judge Lopez returned, and her expression promised that the storm was far from over. I've reviewed the evidence presented, she began. Mrs. Miller, I find your conduct in this matter to be reprehensible. You manipulated a young man who trusted you, attempted to defraud this court, and planned to flee the jurisdiction with illegally obtained assets. Arwen stood. Your Honor, I'm not finished. Sit down. Arwen sat. In light of this evidence, I'm ruling as follows. The divorce is granted on grounds of irretrievable breakdown. However, given Mrs. Miller's fraudulent conduct, she forfeits any claim to marital assets beyond what was specified in the prenuptial agreement. That's not fair, Arwen burst out. Fair? Judge Lopez's eyebrows rose. You attempted to steal millions through perjury and fraud. You're fortunate I don't have the authority to jail you immediately, though that may change once the DA reviews this case. She turned to me. Mr. Miller, you retain all assets currently in your possession, including the Manhattan penthouse and all financial accounts. Mrs. Miller will receive only the settlement specified in the prenuptial agreement, which I believe is $50,000. $50,000. After everything she'd schemed for, she'd walk away with what amounted to pocket change in her world. Furthermore, the judge continued, there's the matter of the Cayman Islands account opened fraudulently in both Mrs. Miller's and Legolas Miller's names. My stomach clenched. Given that Legolas Miller was manipulated into this arrangement and has shown courage in revealing the truth, I'm recommending to the DA that he face no charges related to this account. The funds will be returned to Mr. Aragorn Miller's estate. I felt Legolas sag with relief beside me. As for you, Mrs. Miller, I'm referring this entire matter to the district attorney for investigation of fraud, conspiracy to commit perjury, witness tampering, and potential RICO violations given the interstate nature of your planned flight. RICO? Arwen's voice cracked. That's for organized crime. Fraud conspiracy across state lines qualifies. You should have thought of that before you booked those tickets to Brazil. The judge turned to Ioan. Miss Taylor, I accept that you were deceived by your client. However, I suggest you review your vetting procedures for future cases. Yes, Your Honor, Ioan said, looking like she wanted to disappear into the floor. Is there any other business before this court? Boromir stood. Your Honor, we'd like to ensure Mrs. Miller doesn't leave the jurisdiction pending the DA's investigation. Agreed. Mrs. Miller, you are ordered to surrender your passport to the court immediately. You are not to leave New York State without court permission. This is insane. Arwen stood up, her composure finally completely shattered. I'm being treated like a criminal. You are a criminal, Mrs. Miller. You just haven't been convicted yet. Judge Lopez's voice was ice. Bailiff, please escort Mrs. Miller to the clerk's office to surrender her passport. As the bailiff approached, Arwen turned to Legolas one last time. You ruined everything. No, Legolas said quietly. You ruined everything. I just told the truth about it. She looked at me then, and for a moment I saw the woman I'd fallen for, vulnerable, desperate, human. Aragorn, please. You know I loved you once. Maybe you did, I said, but you loved money more. The bailiff led her away, and I heard her heels clicking on the marble floor, getting fainter and fainter until they were gone. Chapter 11. The courtroom didn't empty immediately after Arwen was escorted out. People sat stunned, processing what they'd just witnessed. A marriage that had started with passion and ended with handcuffs, or at least the promise of them. Judge Lopez addressed the room one final time. The divorce decree is effective immediately. Mr. Wilson, please prepare the final paperwork for my signature. Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Miller Aragorn, a word of advice. You've been given a second chance here. Don't waste it. I won't, Your Honor. She turned to Legolas. Young man, what you did today took tremendous courage. Many adults wouldn't have had the strength to tell the truth when so much was at stake. Your parents should be proud. We are, Rosie said firmly. Judge Lopez nodded, then rose. Court is adjourned. As people filed out, Eowyn Taylor approached our table. She looked exhausted, defeated. Mr. Wilson, she said to Boromir, I want you to know I had no knowledge of my client's schemes. I believe you, Boromir said. Arwen fooled a lot of people. She turned to me. Mr. Miller, I apologize for my role in this. I genuinely believed I was representing a wronged spouse. We all believed her lies at some point, I said. Don't beat yourself up too much. She nodded, gathered her things, and left quickly. I doubted she'd take another divorce case for a long time. Gimli approached us then, hat literally in hand. Sir, if I may say, justice was served today. Thanks to you, Gimli. Your testimony would have been crucial if we'd needed it. Just doing what was right, sir. That woman, she was poison in your home. I'm glad she's gone. So am I, Gimli. So am I. He nodded to Rosie and Legolas, then left quietly. We should celebrate, Boromir suggested. Lunch? My treat? I can't, I said. I need to process this. I need to go home, Legolas said. I feel like I've been hit by a truck. Come on, Rosie said to him. I'll make you something at home. She looked at me. You did good today, Aragorn. Both of you did. After they left, Boromir and I stood in the empty courtroom. What happens to her now? I asked. Best case for her? She pleads down to a lesser charge, pays massive fines, gets probation. Worst case? She does actual time. Fraud over $200,000 is a Class B felony in New York. That's up to 25 years. Jesus. She made her choices, Aragorn. Don't waste time feeling sorry for her. But I did. A little. Not for the schemer she'd become, but for the bright young assistant who'd had dreams beyond being a trophy wife. Somewhere along the way, those dreams had curdled into greed. That evening, I sat alone in the penthouse, my penthouse, free and clear now. The space felt different without Arwen's presence, even though she'd been gone for weeks. Lighter, somehow. Cleaner. My phone rang. Toriel. Heard the news, she said. Congratulations. Thanks. And thank you for everything. Your investigation made this possible. Just doing my job, though I have some updates you might want to hear. Oh? Faramir Davis. He was picked up at JFK trying to board a flight to Sao Paulo. Apparently Arwen had texted him to run. He's being held as a material witness. Will he testify against her? To save his own skin? Absolutely. He's already talking about how she masterminded everything. Of course he was. No honor among thieves. There's more, Toriel continued. We found 3 other accounts. Smaller amounts, but still fraud. Total, she was trying to hide almost $500,000. How did I not see this? Because you weren't looking. You trusted her. That's not a character flaw, Aragorn. That's being human. After we hung up, I walked through the penthouse, seeing it with fresh eyes. The gaudy gold wall Arwen had insisted on. The furniture she'd chosen that was more about impressing people than comfort. The artwork that said nothing, meant nothing, just cost a lot. It all had to go. Chapter 12. 3 weeks later, the penthouse looked completely different. The gold wall was now a calm sage green. The pretentious furniture had been donated to charity, replaced with comfortable pieces that actually invited you to sit. The artwork, those soulless, expensive pieces, had been swapped for photos, family photos. Legolas stood on a ladder, helping me hang a picture from his 10th birthday, both of us covered in cake and grinning like idiots. "Remember that day?" I asked. "You let me eat cake for breakfast," he said. "Mom was furious." "Worth it." "Yeah," he agreed. "It was." We'd been doing this a lot lately, remembering the good times before everything went wrong. Not ignoring the pain, but not letting it erase everything else either. "Dad?" he said, climbing down from the ladder. "Yeah?" "I got into Columbia." My heart swelled. "That's amazing. When did you find out?" "Yesterday. I wanted to tell you in person. I'm so proud of you. Early admission, too. They liked my essay about all this." He gestured vaguely at the room, but I knew he meant everything: the divorce, the trial, the truth. "You wrote about it?" "About choosing truth over comfort. About how integrity isn't inherited, it's chosen." He paused. "I mentioned you." "Yeah?" "I wrote that my father taught me that people can change, that mistakes don't have to define us, that sometimes the hardest thing and the right thing are the same thing." I had to turn away for a moment, ostensibly to adjust a picture frame, but really to compose myself. "Thank you," I said when I could trust my voice. "Mom's coming for dinner tonight," he said, changing the subject. "Is that okay?" Of course. Rosie and I had been rebuilding too. Not romantically, that ship had sailed and sunk spectacularly, but as co-parents, as people who shared history and a son we both loved. We could have dinner together without the weight of what we'd lost crushing us. The doorbell rang. Gimli, who'd stayed on despite everything, answered it. "Miss Martin," he said warmly. "Gimli, I've told you 100 times, call me Rosie." "Old habits, Miss Rosie." She laughed, and the sound filled the penthouse with something it had been missing: genuine warmth. "The place looks good," she said, looking around. "Like actual humans live here now." "That was the goal," I said. We ate dinner at the dining table, nothing fancy, just pasta and salad and conversation that didn't hurt. Legolas told stories from school. Rosie talked about her work with foster kids. I shared a funny story about a client who'd tried to pay me in cryptocurrency that didn't exist. "What about Arwen?" Rosie asked eventually. "Any news?" "She took a plea deal," I said. 2 years probation, massive fines, and she has to pay restitution. No jail time, but she's basically broke and unemployable in New York." "Where will she go?" "I heard she's moving back to Ohio. Her family's there." "Do you feel bad for her?" Legolas asked. I considered the question. "I feel bad for who she could have been, but not for who she chose to be." "That's very zen of you," Rosie said with a small smile. "Therapy helps." "You're in therapy?" Legolas looked surprised. "Twice a week. Figured it was time to work on myself instead of just creating disasters for everyone else to clean up." "Good for you," Rosie said, and meant it. After dinner, we stood on the balcony, looking out at the city lights. The three of us, not a family in the traditional sense anymore, but something, connected by history and love and the choice to move forward. "I've been thinking," Legolas said, "about forgiveness." "Yeah," I said carefully. "I don't know if I forgive you, Dad. Not completely, but I understand you better now. You're just human, flawed and selfish sometimes, but also capable of growing, of choosing better. That's all I can ask for. And maybe," he continued, "understanding is more important than forgiveness anyway." "Where'd you get so wise?" Rosie asked, ruffling his hair. "I had to grow up fast," he said simply. "But I had good teachers. even when they were teaching me what not to do. We laughed, and if there was sadness in it, there was hope too. Later, after Rosie had gone home and Legolas had retreated to his room, I stood alone in the living room. The penthouse felt like a home again. Not the home I'd imagined when I bought it, not the showpiece Arwen had tried to make it, but something real. My phone buzzed, an email from my lawyer. Aragorn final divorce decree attached. You're officially a free man. Try not to marry anyone for at least a year, okay? Boromir, I laughed and deleted the email. I didn't need the papers to know I was free. I'd been free from the moment Legolas chose truth over lies, from the moment we'd chosen to rebuild instead of revenge. Outside, New York hummed with its usual chaos. Inside, my home was peaceful. Tomorrow, Legolas would start his college applications. Rosie would save more kids. I would go to work and try to be better than I was yesterday. It wasn't the life I'd planned. It was harder, more complicated, with scars that might never fully heal. But it was honest. It was real. And for the first time in years, it was enough. The storm had passed. The sun was rising. We were still here, still standing, still family in all the ways that mattered. And that was everything. You know what hit me hardest about this story? It wasn't Arwen's betrayal, or even the courtroom drama. It was watching Aragorn finally understand that his pattern of infidelity created the very weapon used against him. The real plot twist isn't that the stepmother was evil. It's that sometimes we hand our enemies the ammunition they need through our own moral failures, and the only way out is accepting that truth, no matter how much it costs. Makes you wonder, in our own family dramas, are we the victim, the villain, or maybe just human beings stumbling through the wreckage we created, hoping for grace we don't deserve but desperately need?